Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Welcome back to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks, and today we have a special guest podcaster. It's Gaurav Galati.
Hello, I'm Gaurav Galati. I am an editor here, and I'm also the bad boy of the Command Zone, as everyone knows. Everyone knows that. They call me that. Ask anyone. Ask Josh. He'll tell you
business card. Editor/bad boy.
Ooh.
Today we have a very fun episode in mind. We are talking about commanders that when they were released, we were like, ooh, that's going to be a big one.
Yep.
That's going to be super popular. And it didn't really pan out that way.
Yeah.
So these are commanders that have sort of been lost to time, or they were very popular at the beginning and then kind of fizzled out. And we still think that they should, have the numbers.
Yeah, they deserve a second chance, we think. And so we're going to spotlight a few of them and talk about some cards that go in their decks and so on and so forth.
Yeah, hopefully you find a new deck that isn't, super overrepresented. It's always fun to have a very unique deck at the table. But before we get into it, we want to remind you that the best way to support the show is by using our affiliate links over at cardkingdom.com/command. We're going to be talking about a lot of Magic cards today, a lot of singles, and you can bet Card Kingdom has them. You can go over there and look for exactly the single that you're looking for and exactly the printing from exactly the set you want in the condition that you want it. We're Commander players. We're picky about the kind of cards that we play, and that's why I trust Card Kingdom when I'm building my decks, because I know I can buy a huge amount of cards all in one place, and I'm not chasing envelopes halfway around the world making sure that they're showing up on my doorstep. Again, you can support the show and support your growing Magic addiction at cardkingdom.com/command. The other way to support the show is by using our affiliate link over at ultrapro.com/command. UltraPro has some of the highest quality Magic accessories in the business. They've got sleeves and dice and deck boxes, play mats, everything that you need to make sure that your collection is safe and organized and pretty. UltraPro has all of the officially licensed Magic art. So if there's a set that you're really into, if there's a specific card that you're really into, make sure that you go over to ultrapro.com and see if they've got the matching accessories. Some of these are old commanders. Maybe you can catch them on sale. UltraPro always has great sales going on, and you can find out about those when they drop, as soon as they drop, by following the UltraPro newsletter. Again, you can support us and pick up some very cool Magic accessories over at ultrapro.com/command. Finally, you can support us directly over at patreon.com/commandzone. All of our patrons are actually making this show happen. You guys are the bread and the lifeblood of this podcast. Plus, you get some cool perks for being a patron. You get access to extra turns and game nights a day early. You get to know what happens before the internet spoils it for you. And you get access to exclusive content like Turn Talk. Turn Talk is a behind-the-scenes conversation that we record after every single episode of Extra Turns, and it's just the players talking about what would have happened if they had one more turn, if they had just drawn that land they needed a turn earlier, if you hadn't done that, I could have done this. It's really raw, it's really fun, and it's a lot of people just being really passionate about Magic and the game that just happened. So make sure you join our Patreon over at patreon.com/commandzone. Plus, we shout out one lucky patron every single episode, and this episode is dedicated to Sarah Pisula. Thanks, Sarah.
You
rock.
Yeah.
Definitely do. All right, let's get into it. Oh, you've got a long one because we've got a lot of cool commanders to talk about today. We're going to be talking about 10 commanders that we think should have more decks online.
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of these, basically all of these have 2,500 decks or less in the last 2 years on EDH Rec, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, and they came out before 2023, in case you're watching this in 2051. I don't know if that, how many commanders are there.
That's basically just so we don't pick a commander that's super new and doesn't have the number of decks because it came out like 2 months ago.
Yes.
So there's no Lord of the Rings commanders. There's no Aftermath commanders. There's some very cool commanders in both of those sets. We're not going to be talking about them today. So these are the ones that you may have missed in the last couple of years with less than 2,500 decks in EDH Rec. Let's get into it. I want to read this first one because when this card came out, everyone was like, this is the new crazy Simic commander.
Yep.
It's Esix Fractal Bloom. 4 a green and a blue for a 4/4 legendary Fractal with flying. It says, the first time you would create one or more tokens during each of your turns, you may instead choose a creature other than Esix Fractal Bloom and create that many tokens that are copies of that creature.
Yeah. So
okay.
that seems quite powerful, and I think we both thought so when it first was shown off, and it doesn't have that many decks, surprisingly.
So this is the one with the most decks that we're going to talk about. It only has 2,300 decks currently on EDH. It's like 2,306 at time of recording, which just doesn't seem like that many decks for a deck that's so unique. Like this is not an ability that we've seen a lot of. It reminds me kind of Mystic Reflection.
Sure, yeah.
That like the next time a creature would enter, it enters as something else instead.
Right.
And it's like a token clone commander, which are both really, really popular and really fun to pilot.
Right. Yes. Now, one of the big downsides compared to other commanders in this sort of wheel is that it is 6 mana, which is a lot.
It is expensive.
Yeah.
Especially because Esix itself doesn't really do anything.
Right.
It reminds me kind of Riku in that way.
Sure.
Like Riku is a token clone commander of yesteryear. It's 5 mana, but it's Teamer. And it doesn't really do anything until you have another spell. But Riku's very popular.
Yeah, yeah.
So Esix is interesting. I've played some with Esix before. I played a budget brew of Esix on the Scrap Trawlers channel. They're a budget commander channel, and I played an Esix deck that my boyfriend built, and it was nuts.
Yeah.
Because you cast a Mirror Battlesphere, and then they enter with 4 mirrors, and then those are all Mirror Battlespheres, and then they make 4 more mirrors.
Huh, okay.
And then all of a sudden, you're looking down 5 Mirror Battlespheres.
Yeah, that'll end the game pretty quickly.
So it is kind of slow, but it is very powerful. I've also run it as a finisher in my CDC Brood Tyrant deck because it makes zombie tokens.
Sure. Yeah.
And being able to, it also does a ton of like spider spawning, like a lot of tokens all at once.
Yes.
Being able to combine this 6-drop with something else on the board and win the game is a cool puzzle to figure out. So it feels like Esix has a home in more than 2,300 households.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're going to definitely need a bunch of ramp because it is expensive. You get it out earlier, obviously better, because then you can start making tokens and start making copies of the cool stuff on the table. And then you're going to want to get to the payoffs because of what you're doing. Because once you start making a bunch of tokens, people are going to be like, oh, no, this person has to go.
Yeah. That's the thing about Esix is I think most tables will let it happen once.
Yeah.
And then if something crazy happens, they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, now we know.
Now there must be sanctions.
Now we have to crack down on the mathematics
Yeah.
for home.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely want some big ramp spells in this deck. You want a lot of them. And I think this deck really wants a lot of spells that make tokens as well. So it opens up these ramp spells that are more tokeny based.
Right.
Like I really like Growth Spasm. I think this card is, I don't know how good it is. It's cool. It's 2 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle, and create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token. It has sack this creature, add colorless. So it gets you 2 mana sources ramped, but in Esix, it gives you an alternate token in case you draw it late.
Yeah, for Esix, it's quite good. I bet this card isn't played in many other decks, so another way to find a unique place for a unique card.
Yeah. This next one, I don't know if you've played with, but it's really fun.
No, Titania's Command. No, I have not played with this one. This is 4 green for a sorcery that reads, choose to either exile target player's graveyard. You gain 1 life for each card exiled this way. Search your library for up to 2 land cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Create 2 2/2 green bear creature tokens, or put 2+1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So with Esix, obviously you would choose to make 4 bear tokens, which means Haji Mechi. That's a lot of stuff.
So I think you can only choose each mode once. I don't think you can choose.
I see.
But being able to ramp and get two lands into play and make sure that you have all the mana in the world to cast Esix and then cast something else and make those tokens if you already have Esix.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot of flexibility. Plus, exiling your graveyard always comes in handy, and putting 2+1/+1 counters on each creature you control. If you're in a token deck,
yes, that can get out of hand.
Power.
That can get out of hand. That's true.
I played with Titania's Command and I was like, 6 mana is a lot. But then every time I cast it, I'm like, this is kind of worth it. That does a lot.
It's pretty good.
The fun part of this deck, of course, is making the tokens.
Yes.
So Esix is best when you make a ton of tokens all at once.
Yep.
Because they will all enter and become copies.
Yes.
So you don't really want stuff that makes one token repeatedly, like a Chatterstorm or something, because then only the first squirrel would be a clone and then the rest would be squirrels.
Right.
So like the biggest thing you can do with Esix is Avenger of Zendikar.
Yes. I mean, it's played in a lot of green decks already. I don't see why you wouldn't play this in this. And it is a 7-drop, so you're going to play it hopefully the next turn after Esix. So yeah, get ready to have a bunch of scary Avengers. Yeah. Good Lord.
Avenger, you make 6 plants. Let's say 6.
Let's say 6. Let's say you ramped a little bit with some treasures or something. Sure.
Yeah, you have 6 lands. It's fine. And you make 6 Avengers of Zendikar. They all come in with 6 plants. Now you have 7 Avengers of Zendikar. So anytime a land enters, you put $7 on all of your... Like, that's just such a problem.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't get a scoop out of that, they better have a board wipe ready to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wow.
I think that's the top end of this.
Sure. Yeah.
But also, there's a lot of spells that make a lot of tokens all at once.
Yeah.
Like Hornet Queen does a similar thing.
Hornet Queen is one of my old-time favorites. I love Hornet Queen.
It's one of those cards that just continues to be good.
Yeah,
Even when you're like, it's not as good as it used to be.
7-drop for a 2/2 that makes some tokens. I don't know. That's been outclassed. But no, they're Death Touch flyers. Like, they're good.
Yeah.
They're good.
And with Esix, it's like you make the Hornet Queen, you make 4 Hornet Queens, so you get
12?
16.
Oh, yeah.
You get 16 bees and 5 Hornet Queens.
That's pretty good.
That seems fine.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Wow.
But of course, your commander is 6 mana, and you want to make sure that you get some value out of it when it comes down.
Yes. So there's a few cards. Obviously, I searched to find out what's the cheapest way to make a token in EDH. And one of them was Chatter of the Squirrel, which is just a sorcery that makes a token. This still costs 1. It does have flashback. You can do it twice. But
that's great.
There are a lot of cards that you can have out already. There's a bunch of cards you can tap to make a token. And there's cards like Inquisitive Puppet, which I guarantee you'll probably never see in another commander deck. But it is just a one mana artifact creature construct for a 0/2 that reads, when Inquisitive Puppet enters the battlefield, scry 1. That's nothing. Almost nothing. And then you can exile Inquisitive Puppet to just create a 1/1 white human creature token. Sure. But with Esix, that means if it's already out and you play Esix, you immediately get a clone. So that way you don't have to wait till 7-8 mana to cast something,
Right. Because like we're talking about all these big spells that you could do, where like if you cast your commander and it's 6, and then you slam an Avenger of Zendikar, and that's 7, and wow, we win the game. That's 13 mana.
Yeah.
So being able to make sure that you get at least 1 clone out of your commander is so important. And I think this next one is such a house in the deck.
Yeah, Gala Greeters.
This card is so sneaky great.
Yeah, every time I've seen it in a commander game, I've always been like, oh yeah, that card that was a 2 box trapper or something is cool. And yeah, and it's always very good. It just has a few abilities that make it over the top. So Gala Greeters is 1 and a green for a creature elf druid, a 1/1. It has an ability called Alliance. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. You can either put a +1/+1 counter on Gala Greeters, this creature, or you can create a tapped treasure token, which is what we want to do, or you can choose to gain 2 life. So if this is already out when you cast Esix, you will make, obviously, the treasure token, and then as soon as that comes down, you get to copy a creature, which will trigger Gala Greeters again. You can choose another one of those options, and so on and so forth. But yeah, so this is another creature that you want out already, which just gives you the value as soon as the commander is cast, which is fantastic.
What I really like about Gala Greeters in this deck is it gives you something to copy also.
Yeah.
So it's something that you can have on board before Esix comes out, and then you get this treasure token and you get that clone. And even if there's nothing that your opponents have that are particularly interesting to you, you get another Gala Greeters, which we'll make more tokens and we'll make more treasures
Yeah.
and we'll give you further value down
Yeah.
the line. Seems really good.
Very
in
good.
This deck. Worth noting that the treasure token is tapped, so if you have it enter as a clone, that thing will also enter tapped.
Yeah.
Because that's how it works.
Yeah. One other thing I'll say about this commander
Yeah.
is that if you are an artistic person, this is your chance to really show off because you're going to make a bunch of clone tokens, right? So have those like infinite tokens or even just permanent tokens, and you can get to drawing everything you want in your library or your opponent's libraries. And that's a really fun way to make it also that, hey, I'm copying your creatures, but look how cute they are. They're so cute. Isn't this a cute Avenger of Zendikar?
The coolest thing that I did with Esix in City C was it was a spider spawning, so I was making like 12 spider tokens, and instead I had them enter as Ayaras.
Okay.
So Ayara sees herself entering the battlefield,
Yes.
and all of the other Ayaras entering the battlefield.
Incredible.
So you have 12 Ayaras that enter the battlefield at the same time. You basically, I think you drain the table for like 144.
Cool. Get that.
And that's just ETB, and then I'm gonna them die.
Wow.
And I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
this is cool. And it wasn't my Ayara.
It wasn't yours. The possibilities are endless there. You could really come up with some wild combinations. So.
Really, really fun. It's a clone deck. Clone decks are really flexible and get to do a ton of different things. Plus, it's a token deck, so you have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think Esix is really fun.
It's rad.
This next one, I remember when it came out because everyone went, "It does what?"
Yeah. Lots of heads were turned for this one, and surprisingly, very few decks on EDH rec for this.
Only 1,725 decks for this commander. It's Eruth Tormented Prophet.
Yeah.
Do you want to read Eruth?
I shall. Eruth Tormented Prophet is 1, a blue and a red for a legendary creature. Human Wizard. It is a 2/4 that reads, if you would draw a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library instead. You may play those cards this turn. Huh. Seems pretty good.
I mean, turning 1 cards into 2 cards, even like 2 cards just right now, like Impulse Draw, is so powerful.
Yeah. Josh Lee Kwai's ears are burning right now.
Right?
2
The
cards.
value.
2 instead of 1? That's what he wants all the
simple
time.
math.
Yeah.
Simple math.
And surprisingly, I mean, I'm very surprised. I've actually never seen this card across the table from me.
I never
in a
have,
single game, which is very surprising.
Not in the 99.
Yeah.
Not in the command zone.
No.
It just didn't find a home, really. And I wonder, I think people looked at it and was just like, that's busted. I'm not going to play that.
Yeah.
You know, which is fair, but there's so many busted commanders that see a ton of play.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like I look at Eruth and you're like, it's clearly a Storm commander. This is an Izzet Storm commander. The likes of Niv Mizzet and Kess, I think, are the closest comparisons.
Sure.
Because they're both Storm commanders that give some kind of card advantage.
Yep. Yeah.
There's obviously like Birgis and the Vadrix that are Storm commanders that give mana advantage.
Sure.
But these ones are more like, you give you all the cards in the world, you just have to figure out what to do with those.
Yeah.
And I think the coolest thing about Eruth over Niv Mizzet and Kess is that she opens up some really, really cool cards that don't get to see a ton of play.
Yeah. Some unique playstyles you can have with Eruth and, just talking about cantripping into double cards, which is fantastic already.
Right.
There's lots of cool things you can do with it. So
Yeah. One of the hot pieces of tech that doesn't get to see play in a lot of decks that I was excited about is Brainstorm. Have you heard of this?
Brainstorm, yeah. What is that? 1 mana, draw 3? That doesn't seem great, right?
Seems okay.
Seems all right already.
With the Ruth, you draw 6.
Oh.
Brainstorm is very interesting because you draw 6 and then you put 2 back from your hand.
Yeah.
So you exile 6 and then you put 2 back from your hand. So it feels sort of like you're discarding 2 cards.
A little bit, yeah.
It's a replacement effect. So that's how it works.
I believe so, yeah. I feel like most of the time with Eruth, you probably want your hand to be empty anyways.
Yeah, I think the more I thought about it, the more you just want all of your cards in exile.
Yeah.
You're spending Brainstorms, you're spending like Careful Studies, which is draw 2, discard 2 for a single blue. And you just have 20 cards in exile that you could all cast at the same time and no cards in your hand.
Right.
So it's going to make for its classic Storm where it has one huge turn.
Right.
Where basically they're winning that turn or they lose the game, which
Right.
is Storm.
Yeah, that's how they go. Let them try that one thing, and then after that they'll just.
And they're
sit
like,
there.
look, I'm not going to do anything for the first 6 turns. My 7th turn is going to be bananas.
Yeah.
And then I will either win or I will do nothing from turn 8 on.
Yeah.
So I think Storm is appropriate in some playgroups. It's not appropriate in other playgroups. But I think that this Storm Commander does have some really special play patterns, which is just all of these 1-drop spells that say, draw 2, discard 4. Like Breakthrough is draw 4 cards, then choose X cards in your hand and discard the rest.
Oh, wow.
But it's a blue. So you pay blue, you draw 4 cards, discard your hand.
Yeah, it's blue X, but you don't have any reason to do the X part of it.
Yeah, so you would impulse
quite
draw
good.
8 cards and then discard your hand.
Ooh, yeah, wow.
So clearly this deck is going to have all of the cards that it wants.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You will regularly see 50 to 75% of your deck, if not all of it,
Right.
if you're doing it right. I
If
mean,
you're doing all the wheels and stuff, like there's
Ooh.
definitely a way to just eliminate your library.
a wheel is draw 14. Whew.
Discard nothing.
Discard nothing. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, and a weird side effect of this is when people are like, "Who's the biggest threat here? How many cards do you have?" And I'm like, 0.
0.
I'm not a threat. I have nothing in my
I'm not
hand.
doing anything. I drew a brainstorm. I have 8 cards. In my hand.
It came out of nowhere. It's a storm.
But we're definitely going to have cards.
Yes.
It's very, very easy for this deck to have access to magic cards. So what you really want to make sure that the 99 does is make a lot of mana.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're going to want your classic Storm mana stuff.
Yeah.
Kiln Artist.
Beergy.
Yep. The new Urabrask, which is both mana and a payoff.
Yes, that one is quite good. Yes, Goblin Electromancer, a classic, also gives you discount for all your instants and sorceries. So these are like probably must-haves. Just because ramping, I mean, you'll have some stuff that makes treasures, obviously, in a red deck.
Yeah.
But you'll need these discounts to really churn through your deck and find those win cons.
Right. You have an enabler in the command zone. You do not
Yeah.
have a payoff.
No.
So you have to figure out how to close this game out.
No payoff. I mean, the stat line is a 2/4, so you can defend a little bit, but honestly, like, there's not much you can do against a lot of attackers. So you're going to need to win quickly once people realize what you're doing with your deck.
Got to be careful. But your curve is going to be quite low because you want to cast everything at the same time.
Yes.
So there's a lot of Storm payoffs that we're used to seeing, and we can touch on them really quick. This is going to be like your gutter snipes and your mini gutter snipes like Firebrand Archer and Kessig Flame Breather. That's just when you cast a non-creature or an instant or sorcery, you deal damage to the table.
Right.
That's going to be a huge one for this deck, where it's like,
that's
I cast a Brainstorm, impulse draw 6, I found a Burning Inquiry, impulse draw 3 more, like just churn.
Yeah, these are, when lightning strikes, some things around it get singed. In this case, it's your opponents getting singed every time you do something, which is fantastic in a Storm deck. But you'll need these to lower the life totals of everybody else around you, so you keep, in the same lane as them, and hopefully you're losing life at the same rate because they see you doing this.
Right, yeah. But the cool thing about this deck is it relies on these cards still, but you do get all of these additional like Cast from Exile payoffs that they've been adding over the last 2 years.
Absolutely. There's been a lot more of these ever since I think Prosper came on the scene.
Right. Yeah. Starting with the Prosper deck for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
The big one's Passionate Archaeologist. This card's sweet. It's a background for 1 and a red. It says commander creatures you own have. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, that creature deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent.
Yeah. This is great.
Now you're just casting spells and shooting people and casting spells and shooting people.
Yeah.
And it just gives you an additional synergy piece.
Yeah, another machine gun piece. A lot of machine guns in this.
For sure. Yeah. You probably want Torbrands or, ways to damage enhancers.
Yes.
This one I thought was really cool, and I honestly forgot it was a card. Some of the Warhammer 40k cards really disappeared into the ether, but this one's called The Lost and the Damned. It's 1 a blue and a red for an enchantment. It says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control from anywhere other than your hand, or you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, create a 3/3 red spawn creature token.
Yeah, so a great way to build your defenses up, having a bunch of 3/3s that will block for you and also do damage. So this is fantastic. You're doing both of these things all the time because you can play the lands. It's play a card.
Yeah.
Is what it says on Eruth. You can play that card, which means lands are available to choose. That's fantastic. Yeah, I forgot that card also existed.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
it seems good.
This is another Warhammer card that I also forgot that existed. This is Keeper of Secrets. It's 5 and a red for a creature, a demon, a 6/4 with first strike haste. It has an ability called Symphony of Pain. Whenever you cast a spell...
Warhammer's so silly.
I mean, it's Symphony of Pain. You got to make a thing out of it. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Keeper of Secrets deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. Notably, this card and one previous that we'd mentioned, which was Passionate Archaeologist, are target opponent, not every opponent, like the other ones we mentioned earlier, which is interesting. So this might be the chance to get rid of one targeted opponent with these cards because maybe spreading it out will get you killed. But yeah, quite good.
When you have a big storm turn, you're the problem now.
Yeah.
So you have to eliminate as many players as possible.
Yes. Yes.
Because they will figure it out that you're trying to kill them.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is kind of the problem you had mentioned earlier about like check with your group about playing a storm deck because it can feel a little out of nowhere. A lot of players who are newer to the game just play, creature decks that do things and are very open about what they're doing, where storm decks do one giant turn, someone's dead, maybe 2 people are dead, and it came out of nowhere. And that's going to feel unfair, even though in terms of Magic, it's an archetype that's been around forever.
It's part of it.
Yeah, it's part of it. Yeah, it is.
Before we move on, there's one more card that there's a few more cards, I guess, that need to be mentioned. Delayed Blast Fireball is an incredible Magic card in any deck that's commander casts things from exile. This is 1 red for an instant. Delayed Blast Fireball deals 2 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. If this spell was cast from exile, it deals 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control instead. It also has Foretell 6, so it has a way for you to put it into exile. But the trick with Delayed Blast Fireball is casting it off of an impulse draw, so it's 3 mana, deal 5 damage to each opponent, and they're all of their boards, and not your board.
Yeah.
It's extremely powerful. If you can cast this multiple times from exile in a game, this card is a win con. Like if you can Mystic Sanctuary and put it back on top and find a way to exile it again and cast it again, this is going to be one of the stronger cards in this deck, worth all 3 mana. Yeah. It's really powerful. Like we said, you're going to be seeing a lot of cards, perhaps too many cards.
Yeah, perhaps all 99 of those cards.
Yeah, so you should have a plan, and that plan is probably Thassa's Oracle.
Yes. Thassa's Oracle or Laboratory Maniac should win you the game because they are replacement effects that will make it so that you get to choose which effect goes off, either Eruth's effect or, in this case, Laboratory Maniac's effect, which says basically if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. And again, these are both cards that newer playgroups might not be familiar with because they are, they're played in very high-level decks as well. Yeah. But this is one of the very few ways that Storm can win the game if they're out of options, really. Right. Like if they can just dig and do this, if they can't get past the defenses of everybody else. This is another win con that they have in their deck.
And I can certainly see a turn where like a version of Eruth that is very focused on Thassa's Oracle. That's just all of the cheap draw spells to go to dig, and then cast your Thassa's Oracle all in one turn. I would say that I think that will get old for you to play.
Yeah.
I think one of the cool things about Storm decks, and the reason that I like playing Storm decks, is that it's a puzzle that you have to figure out while you're playing it.
Right.
And you're like, I need to find a way to deal that last bit of 8 damage. How do I do that?
Yep.
And figuring that puzzle out makes a deck like this something that you can play over and over and over again.
Yeah.
If your deck is very focused around Thassa's Oracle, which is a much cleaner way, it's an easier way to win with this kind of deck. You will do it a few times and your playgroup will be like, great. Can you play a different deck?
Yeah. Or the next time you play that, they'll be like, oh, we have to kill you first.
Yeah, or you just get bored of it.
Yeah.
It's very easy for like super linear decks to just run out of gas. Yeah. So I like having Thassa's Oracle as maybe a backup plan, or if you're playing in much higher playgroups, get it in there. But I wouldn't have your whole deck bent around it.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, on to the next one.
An oldie but a dummy.
Ooh.
I'm so excited to get to talk about it.
I'm
because
actually very excited.
I think when he came out, a lot of people built him, and then he sort of faded, and it's a real shame because Grismold the Dreadsower is a good boy. 1 green and a black for a troll shaman. He's a 3/3 with trample. It says at the beginning of your end step, each player creates a 1/1 green plant creature token. And then it says whenever a creature token dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Grismold the Dreadsower. So he's a 3/3 right now, but he will not be for long.
No.
Grismold's so sweet.
So cool. So cool. I mean, you're technically putting out 7 power when you play this card because you're putting... I mean, you're spreading the power up, but at the same time, it's very cool. You get to gift everyone a little plant. It's cute.
It's so... I think Grismold can appeal to a lot of people. Like if you're interested in Feldergriff, Grismold does a similar thing. It gives your opponents things and can punish them for it. It reminds me kind of Kresh the Bloodbraided, which was another like oldie but goodie.
Yeah.
Which says whenever another creature dies, you may put counters on Kresh, so he becomes big when stuff dies.
But this one is making those creatures for you on the end step, which is fantastic.
Right. So you get it's sort of its own engine here.
Yeah.
It also is like incidentally a +1/+1 counter deck. So if you're into green-black counters, that is another way. But I like this as sort of a weird give your opponent stuff and then say, why do you have all that stuff deck?
Yeah, it's a card I have seen before in the 99 of a lot of decks.
Yeah.
And I played personally in my Glissa the Trader deck because Glissa wants to kill creatures to get artifacts back. And sometimes they don't have creatures, so this gives them creatures for me to kill to get artifacts back.
I love that.
Which is fantastic. It's such a good card. But I have not seen it many times in as the commander of many decks, and that's what we're trying to talk about here. So
yeah, alternatively... Gliss is really good in Grismold.
Yes, also true.
They're buddies.
Yes, they're friends, yes.
So the first thing that we want to talk about is other cards that give people a lot of tokens to buff up your boy. He's going to be big and have trample. And there's a lot of things that do this. Especially, they've been giving this a lot to black lately. Slaughter Specialist is a vampire warrior. It's a 2-mana 3/3. When it enters, each opponent creates a 1/1 white human creature token. And then whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Slaughter Specialist.
Yeah.
So she's her own little mini Grismold.
Yeah, notably this doesn't say token, this just says any creature. So even better a little bit from there. And also has the same synergy of, +1/+1 counter. So if you're doing that, great include. Fantastic.
There's a lot of cards that do this. Hunted Troll is ETB, gives some stuff out. Clackbridge Troll is ETB, gives some goats out.
Some troll synergy here.
Yeah, trolls really... Because Grismold's a troll,
yeah,
right?
Exactly,
we got 3 trolls
That's
that
pretty
hand...
good.
I didn't know that was part of Troll's character.
I guess I didn't know that either.
Like distributing small gifts.
I thought they were just interested in goats here, like this one, Clackbridge Troll.
Yeah.
Beautiful Clackbridge. This is 3 black for a troll, and 8/8. That's a 5-mana 8/8. Trample haste. When Clackbridge Troll enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 3 0/1 white goat creature tokens. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If a player does, tap Clackbridge Troll and you gain 3 life and you draw a card. So this will, notably also trigger Grismold, which is fantastic. But, you got some troll synergy in there, which is fantastic.
I love it. I want troll blink deck that gives out all this
Interesting.
stuff.
That's hard in green black, but I'm sure not impossible.
I know, we can do it.
We'll figure it out.
We can do
Artifacts.
it, guys.
Yeah, let's do it.
Tribute to Hirobi gives out rats to your opponents. That was from Neon Dynasty.
Rats are like tiny trolls, I think.
I think we trolls. Seed the Land gives out snakes. Genesis Chamber gives out mirrors. One that I wanted to mention that is sweet in this deck is Tombstone Stairwell.
Here's an oldie.
2 black for an enchant world.
What?
I know. It means there can only be one on it.
Ah, the world.
If somebody else casts another enchant world, then you have to sacrifice your enchant world.
Okay, how many of these cards see play?
It says, during each upkeep, each player puts into play a Tomb Spawn token for each summon card in his or her graveyard. Treat those tokens as 2/2 black creatures, and they are unaffected by summoning sickness and count as zombies.
Huh.
At the end of any turn, or if Tombstone Stairwell leaves play, bury all of those tokens. It also has cumulative upkeep 1 and a black. Okay, so that was a lot, but this is what it says. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, they make zombies equal to the number of creatures in their graveyard.
Okay.
They have haste.
Okay.
At the end of their turn, they have to sacrifice all those zombies.
Okay.
So
Which
you're
means
making a ton of tokens,
Yes.
and you're forcing them to sacrifice all those tokens at the same time.
so
It's
Grismold will get
a
huge.
little dangerous, but you're going to have a big guy.
Big
and
guy.
That's what matters.
Yes, absolutely. With trample, by the way.
Yeah, the
which
trample is
very real. Very relevant.
My friend used to have a Grismold deck, and it was always, we were like, just wait, it's gonna be so big. You guys, it's little now, it's gonna be so big.
Yep.
It's a ton of fun. So you're handing out a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
which is a little dangerous.
A little dangerous sometimes because what if they have things to, make those bigger, enchant them, equip them?
What if they have a skull clamp?
Oh, no. Yeah.
So you're gonna need ways to answer all of the things that they're giving you, or at least punish them for it.
Sure.
But I've seen this kind of thing in a lot of Grismold decks, which is just sort of minus anthems.
Okay.
Something like Illness in the Ranks says creature tokens get -1/-1.
Yeah, so that basically means as soon as you play Grismold, on the end step, you'll make all those tokens, and then they'll die immediately.
Yep, and you'll have a 7/7.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty rad.
There's illness in the plant ranks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very virulent
Virulent. I think virulent sounds about right.
plague. Doesn't that just mean like a plaguey plague?
It's the bad plague. They should just call it the bad plague.
It's a big creature tokens get -2.
There's no good plague, let's be honest.
It just doesn't virulent just mean virusy?
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, so it's like, and that's a plague.
You don't want to catch
it should
this
just
one.
be called plague. All
Plague. Creature token gets -2/-2, which
Yeah.
similar effect but more powerful.
Yeah.
This also has the upside if your opponents are playing token decks. Oopsie.
Uh-oh.
That's an oopsie for you. I'm sorry. And tokens are very prevalent now. You
they
make tokens in just about every deck when you sneeze.
For sure.
So
it's these are going to be they're a good synergy with your deck, and they might be accidentally very powerful against your opponents. Pestilence does a similar thing where it's like it can really shut down token decks, but you're turning everyone into a token deck, so you have to shut them down a little bit. Pestilence is a black enchantment that has an activated ability that says black. Pestilence deals 1 damage to each creature and each player.
Yeah, that'll end the game pretty quickly. It's players too, so watch out.
And your guy's getting bigger all the time. In case you need to clean up your mess, this lady comes in handy.
This is Massacre Girl. This is 3 in black for a legendary creature, Human Assassin. It's a 4/4 that reads, it's got Manache, and reads, when Massacre Girl enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So, with Grismold out, hopefully there's a bunch of tokens out. When this happens, you order the triggers so that whenever a token dies, Grismold gets that +1/+1 counter. So he will basically stay on par with Massacre Girl until obviously end of turn, in which case he will be gigantic and everything else on the board will be dead because this will trigger quite a few times. Which is
It'll
wild.
just be Massacre Girl and her troll boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. They make a great couple.
Aww. My favorite way to build these decks is to give people stuff and then ask them why they have all that stuff. Where did you get that stuff? So I would run cards like Bloodseeker or Trespasser's Curse that say whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. Or Trespasser's Curse is a curse that does the same thing only on 1 player.
Yes.
So you give them plants and then you drain their life total for it.
Yeah.
This one's really fun.
Archfiend of the Dross.
Yeah.
This is one of the newer cards. This is 2 and a black for a Phyrexian Demon, a 6/6 flyer that reads, Archfiend of the Dross enters the battlefield with 4 oil counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove an oil counter from Archfiend of the Dross. Then, if it has no oil counters on it, you lose the game. That doesn't seem great. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, its controller loses 2 life. And therein lies the rub, because a lot of creatures in our deck will make them have creatures, and we will be killing those creatures, so they will probably be dead before those oil counters ever come off.
Yeah, and 4 turns is a long time.
In Commander, yes. A huge amount of time, yeah.
So there's definitely that downside and that ticking clock, but this deck is going to be full of sack outlets because you're making a ton of tokens too, and you want to make sure you're using that value. So if it gets dicey with Archfiend of the Dross, you can get rid of it.
Yep.
But in the meantime, it is going to be doing a ton of damage to your commander. Also, I could see you running some proliferate stuff.
Sure.
Because your commander is +1 counters. Not likely, but it's possible.
I mean, it's also a 6/6 flyer, so chances are your opponents don't want to get hit in the air for 6 every turn, so maybe they'll kill it anyways. It's possible.
One that's really fun when you're handing out tokens is Zuri's Predation. 5 green for a sorcery. For each creature your opponents control, create a 4/4 green Phyrexian beast creature token. Each of those tokens fights a different one of those creatures.
We have very different ideas of fun, me and you, Rachel.
It's so you give them all these plants, and then you make a beast for every single one of them, and you murder all the plants. Your guy gets really big, and then you have all these beasts.
Yeah. It does seem like fun for one person.
Yeah, the Phyrexians.
Yeah, the Phyrexian. Grismold's a secret Phyrexian. You heard it here first.
Sneaky Phyrexian.
Yeah.
I love it. I play Azuri's Predation in my Feldergriff deck, and it's really fun.
I mean, it's an 8 mana win con. Like, you play this, you'll probably win the game if your board is big enough. So, you do it.
Get it done.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, it's an aristocrat deck.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite styles of playing. You play creatures like Blood Art, a Species Specialist, and Morbid Opportunist, and you get to draw cards and ping people for little bits here and there, and then do a big finisher like Azuri's Predation to close out the game, because their life total is probably going to be pretty low and their board is going to be pretty small. So, yeah, quite good. Keeping your life up here is also great.
A couple cool techie cards that I could see running. Toshiro Umezawa seems really good. It's 1 black for a human samurai with Bushido 1. But the important part is whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from play, you may play target instant card in your graveyard. If that creature would be put into a graveyard this turn, remove it from the game instead. Excuse me. If that card would be put in. Yeah. So if you cast the instant, it's exiled instead. Yeah. You're trying to kill a bunch of stuff that your opponents have just sort of incidentally. So this will help you reuse heroic interventions or removal spells or
Infernal Grasp.
fight spells.
Fight spells.
I think this deck probably runs like berserks and crazy stuff like that. I could see Toshiro really coming in handy if you're building around the instance.
That's cool. Yeah,
he's a cool guy. Jordan has a Toshiro deck.
Yes, it's very scary.
Yeah.
I'm very scared of it.
Not to mention your guy is huge.
Yeah, what can you do with a huge guy? What can you do with a huge guy in Commander? Those aren't usually very good, right?
Yeah, having a huge guy. First of all, you could hit somebody with it.
He's got trample. Might as well do that. But what about after combat?
You sack him to greater good and you draw 20 cards.
Sounds
discard
good.
3.
Sounds good.
And then you replay him for 5.
Yeah.
Because he's so inexpensive.
Yeah, Grismold will become a lightning rod, so have a backup plan of greater good to sack him and say, okay, well, at least I get something out of it. Refill my entire hand.
It's great having those like ejector buttons on the side where it's like, even if your only plan is to sack Grismold, it's just 4 mana on layaway for like, I will draw it when the time is right.
Yeah.
Or Rich Card's expertise won't force you to sacrifice it. You just draw 20 and put a thing into play. That seems pretty good.
Yes, also good.
Okay.
All right.
That's Grismold. He's cool.
Quite good.
It's one of those commanders that I think he was just kind of too scary, and everyone was like, everyone's afraid of my Grismold deck. But these days, it feels a lot closer to what people are doing. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, we were just talking about Esix, and there are a lot of decks that make clones and copies of tokens and so many other things. So this seems like it could fly under the radar and still do really cool things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Grismold.
Oh.
This next commander is one of the more recent ones that we're going to talk about. It is Jhoira, Ageless, Innovator. Blue and a red for a legendary human artificer. She's a 2/3 and has an activated ability that says tap, put 2 ingenuity counters on Jhoira, Ageless, Innovator. Then you may put an artifact card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, where X is the number of ingenuity counters on Jhoira.
Yeah, so this is interesting this is another red-blue deck that obviously we talked about, a storm deck, so this is a very different style of deck.
Right.
So what kind of stuff can we do with Jhoira? It seems pretty safe and unassuming from my first look at it. I didn't think much of this commander when I saw it originally.
Yeah, so it seems slow. If the plan is to tap Jhoira, put a 2-drop into play, untap Jhoira on your next turn, put a 4-drop into play.
Right.
That feels very slow.
Yeah.
But there are ways to sort of turbo the number of counters on her or untap and tap her again. So if you play Jhoira, you tap her, you put a 2-drop, you untap her, you tap her, you put a 4-drop in, untap her, tap her, you put a 6-drop in. Now you've only untapped her twice and you've cheated into play 4 things on the same turn.
Yeah.
And it's artifacts, so you're often drawing cards and sacrificing stuff and using your graveyard, putting them back in your hand. So I could definitely see it being a really interesting sort of loopy-doopy artifact deck. I mean,
loopy-doopy.
Yeah, loopy-doopy one.
Loopy-doopy.
Because she's an Elvish Piper for artifacts.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah,
that's super fun.
That is essentially what it is. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And obviously, I'm not sure about the split of it, but I know Proliferate is a much more popular thing because of all the cards that have come out this year. So it's possible you can cheat a lot more stuff out into play with that as well.
Yeah, I think if you're interested in cheating big artifacts into play and you don't want to like Chisgoria or Saheeli the Gifted isn't your thing, I think there's some really neat cards that you can put into Jhoira to make her do something that feels a little bit different and isn't quite as like dump. The coolest thing I think about Jhoira that like is compelling to me is that you can do it all at instant speed.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Normally with this kind of like powerful ability, they were limited to sorcery speed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But this can all happen on end step.
Yeah.
You can cast Jhoira and have a 1,000-year elixir, so she has haste.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then just pass.
Yeah.
And you will find out what I have.
Yeah. I'd be very scared once I attack into a Jhoira player and they tap it to put down a worm coil engine.
Yeah.
That sounds like my living nightmare.
It's also, you get to kind of be secretive about like, what could it be?
Yeah, it's sort of a way to play at instant speed without sort of, having an instant deck in your hand, basically, So that's interesting.
Yeah. So you're going to need ways to get more counters on her. We mentioned untapping her is a very good way to do that. 1,000-year elixir is a classic in decks like this, but also the new Sting, the Glinting Dagger is very cool as well. Have you seen this one?
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at it now and I did not realize that it had so much relevant text to this card. I was like, oh yeah, Sting, the card that's good against like orcs and goblins or something.
We'll
like that's the one, right?
Ignore that line. It's a 2-mana equipment that is equipped 2. It says equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has haste. Already good.
Notable.
At the beginning of each combat, untap equipped creature. Great.
Okay.
Then it says yada 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 goblin or orc.
Yeah. So if Jhoira has been taken off the table a few times, you get her back out. This means that's 2 activations in one go. If this gets equipped, am I reading that right?
Yeah. I mean, if you equip her right away, well, you could put it into play with Jhoira. No. But if you equip Jhoira with haste, then you can put it into play too, and it'll untap on your combat and also all of your opponent's combat.
Every combat, each combat. Whoa.
So it's a little slow, but it is like, this is a real problem that does a lot for you in this deck.
Very good. Okay.
This is the coolest tech in the deck.
Mirren Spy?
Yeah.
Okay, Mirren Spy is 2 and a blue for a creature, a drone. It's a 1/3 flyer. So far, seems like nothing. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may untap target creature. Oh, boy.
Cool.
Okay. I'm seeing a pattern here. I see.
Yeah.
I understand what's happening here.
So Jhoira doesn't count as casting it. She puts it into play.
Right.
So you would have to cast artifacts in between. But this deck is going to be full of artifacts.
Yes.
Because you have to have them to be able to use the value of your commander.
Absolutely.
So Mirren Spy seems really cool, especially if you're like, all right, I'll tap her, I'll put a 2-drop into play, I'll cast, a signet, untap her. I'll tap her and cast something else, untap her. And then you pass and she's got 6 counters on her.
Yeah. I mean,
what else could I have?
You get a Shimmer Mirror in play and start casting artifacts at instant speed, or a Liberator in play.
Liberator.
It gets quite scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm seeing the play here. It's pretty good.
It's a lot of weird tech, but I do think it's cool. Like you mentioned, the Proliferate goes a long way here. One I like in particular is Ichormoon Gauntlet.
Oh, yeah. Now, a lot of people were using this for Planeswalkers because it says on it Planeswalkers. Yeah. So this is 2 and a blue for an artifact. Planeswalkers you control have 0, use a 0 loyalty ability, and Proliferate, and -12, take an extra turn after this one. But the other ability is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose a counter on target permanent, put an additional counter of that kind on that permanent. And notably, Jhoira has unique counters, so this would work and be fantastic.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yes. Very
Plus,
good.
It itself is an artifact.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
yep.
you can cheat it into play with Jhoira and keep things moving.
Yeah, I love that.
Flux Channeler's classic. Throne of Geth is an artifact that says sack an artifact, proliferate. Seems real solid.
Jump. Yeah.
Something I wanted to mention is that because Jhoira puts ingenuity counters on in 2s, you probably are best off running 2 drops, 4 drops, and 6 drops primarily.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Like odd ones are fine, but
Sure.
it does feel like you lose a tiny bit of value.
Yeah.
Because you have to have like 1 more counter than their mana value.
Yeah, that's true.
Am I overestimating
No,
that?
I think there's some sort of math to be done there that makes it good. I mean, if there's a solid 3 drop or a 1 drop,
Right.
you have to have it obviously included.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to say this is a deck that only has 2s, 4s, 6s, 8s. Like that's kind of funny too.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
you can do some of that.
it's neat. But I like that the 2 drops specifically because you want a breadth of 2 drops, so you're making sure that you get that value the first time you tap Jhoira. But of course, we're not here for the 2 drops. We're here for the big boys.
Yeah, you got my boy here, Worm Coil Engine.
Love him.
6
He
drop.
just
Yes.
never gets old.
It's so good. It's always been a favorite card. Yes, it's fantastic. Worm Coil Engine is. Do I need to say who doesn't know Worm Coil Engine? Everyone knows.
It's on screen. If you're not familiar, he's a good boy.
Ask your daddy about Worm Coil Engine.
I really like Sharding Sphinx. This is a 6 mana 4/4 flyer. It says when an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may create a 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature token with flying.
Oh.
This is sort of an oldie because 6 is a lot and it does feel a little slow.
Yeah.
But it is a board in a box that you can cheat into play on end step, which gives it like pseudo haste.
That's true.
And then it itself will trigger it. So you get a Thopter immediately. Then the next time you hit with 2 things, you make 2 more.
Right.
And it spirals out of control.
Yeah.
Anything that you can do that spreads out their removal a little bit, I think is really valuable.
Yeah, beautiful Thopter army in the air.
Yeah, I'm also a fan of flyers. People still haven't figured out how to do it.
They're so good. Yeah.
Like Commander players are continue to be baffled by flyers.
Yeah. I can't block it.
Wait, what?
How to do?
I don't have any flyers in this whole deck.
That has definitely happened to me where I build a deck and I'm like, yep, I'm good. And then I go to play and there's an army of flyers attacking me. And I'm like, do I have any flyers in this deck?
Yeah, there's just like a 5/5 flyer. And you're
Yeah.
just like, that's going to kill me. I know it is.
I didn't plan for this. Obviously, Blightsteel Colossus is a fantastic finisher. Also an even card. It is 12 mana.
See?
So, hey, it's those
Squeezing
numbers
out
are
all that
working out.
value.
Cityscape Leveler is one of the newer ones that has come out. Portal to Phyrexia, very scary. Not even, but still probably includable.
Still we're doing
Yikes.
probably.
Very good. Ooh, the One Ring.
Yeah.
This card's good. Has anybody talked about this card yet?
I've heard tell that this card's good. There's also a cute move using Encroaching Mycosynth, which is a new card. It is a 4 mana artifact that says on non-land permanents you control are artifacts in addition to their other types. The same is true for permanent spells you control and non-land permanents you own that aren't on the battlefield.
Interesting.
So now all of the permanents in your hands are artifacts.
Huh.
And now you could have anything.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could see building a weird deck around Encroaching Mycosynth that you use her to cheat.
Yeah.
enchantments and weird stuff.
You didn't
into
expect
play.
this.
Aha!
That's interesting.
Got him.
All right.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff that you could do here. This again is an Ozolith deck.
Sure.
Your commander is going to be a bit of a removal magnet, and being able to store those ingenuity counters on an artifact on the battlefield. So next time you cast her, she's ready to go.
Yeah.
I think is pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Jhoira Suite, we have got 6 more commanders that we want to talk about today. We're going to get to those in just a few minutes. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
Run! Run! That thing will devour us all! Nothing can sate the hunger of Yargle, the glutton of Urborg!
Really? Have you tried Factor, America's #1 meal kit?
What? No! There's no time for that now!
I find that hard to believe. It only takes 2 minutes to prepare a fresh, never frozen Factor meal. You even get to skip the grocery store, prep time, and cleanup. Plus, they deliver meals straight to your door.
Are you insane? We've got to keep running!
Keeping healthy, eh? Factor's got you covered with their selection of dietitian-approved calorie-smart meals. Or try their Protein Plus selections if you need that extra boost to support your wellness goals. See, they got something for everyone.
Yargle! He's here! I hunger!
Here you go, Yargs. Try this cheesy bacon ranch shredded chicken. It's got portobellos and garlic broccoli. My favorite.
Yum. Okay, I go now.
Head to factormeals.com/command50 and use code command50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code command50 at factormeals.com/command50 to get 50% off your first box.
How's it, everybody? We're excited to announce the return of Game Nights tokens. Dun dun dun! Each order includes 40 total tokens all in one pack. There are 4 of each token and there are 10 tokens.
These will be available in other premium versions. We have a premium foil and a gold foil version. And of course, the ultra premium gold foil tokens come in a special high quality drawer box. It's a really cool way to show off your Game Nights bling.
Yeah, I even use this box for other things. It's very sturdy and it looks sharp.
Plus, if you want to show that you're the biggest Game Night fan out there, our top tier pledge level has something really special. It's a custom-made double-sided playmat that features all of the art from the tokens with a really cool comic book inspired layout.
Yeah, very few of these end up getting made.
As with all of our Kickstarters, this is for a limited time, so this is your best chance to get your hands on these tokens and playmats.
Just go right now, lock in your order. Don't mess around. Just guarantee that you're going to get them.
Absolutely. All right, thanks everyone, and get your pledge in now.
And then I'm going to flash out Illusory Ambusher. I will bolt it to draw 3 cards. I will sneak attack out Triskaidekaphile. I'm going to go to my upkeep, and I will win the game.
That was your first time playing the deck?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first time in paper. I've already goldfished it like 100 times on ARCHIDEKT. Their playtester is super user-friendly. Playing cards just takes 1 click, and you can mulligan, tutor, and move through your turns with the press of a key. There are simple menus with counters and copies, and you can take notes on cards as you play them.
ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/commandzone.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking about the commanders that we thought should have been more popular. Ones that we were like, that's going to be everywhere. And then it just sort of never was.
Didn't happen.
Cool commanders that we love. Hope to see more at your commander table. Check them out. This next one is a Boros commander and a human, right? Just my style. Tell us all about her, Gaurav.
This is Queen Kayla Bin-Kroog. This is 1 a red and a white for a legendary creature. Human noble, a 2/3. It reads 4 and a tap. Discard all the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. You may choose an artifact or creature card with mana value 1 you discarded this way. Then do the same for artifacts or creature cards with mana values 2 and 3. Return those cards to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery.
Cool.
Yeah, what an interesting card. So basically you get to cheat just about 3 things into play while discarding your entire hand.
And drawing a fresh new hand.
Yeah, wild. I honestly thought this would get a lot more play because of how powerful it is.
I remember when she came out, people were like, is she a EDH commander? We're like, I don't know. And it was everywhere.
Yeah.
And I play Winota in CEDH and people were like, does Kayla go in Winota?
Yeah,
and we were like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And she just sort of never quite materialized. But if you play Winota, or if you tried to play Winota as a casual deck and you realize that she doesn't really do that.
There is no casual Winota.
Yeah, like she's only formal wear. Maybe Queen Kayla is more your style. Or if you're into Osgear, but you like, there's another person in your play group that has Osgear, Kayla is a very cool alternative. Because it's sort of like a place with the graveyard, and it's a wheel in the command zone, and it's sort of innocuous.
Yeah. This is another deck where you'll see a lot of your deck, which is fantastic. Doesn't happen very often. But yeah, like you're saying, innocuous, because what could you be playing? Like it could be played in many different ways. I was thinking a stacks deck.
Right.
But there's probably other ways to play it as well.
I think if you're building mostly around creatures and like creatures that are 1, 2, and 3,
sure,
it's gonna be a hate bear deck.
Hate bear, sure.
Because that's just naturally what like the most impactful creatures at those mana values.
Yeah, and you are in white, so that has a lot of hate bears that are good.
Yeah, so I could definitely see you like a creature focused version of this that feels that runs a lot of hate bears. But either way, you're going to be running a lot of creatures in the 1, 2, and 3 slot, and there's some really cool ones. The 1 slot like. Esper Sentinel is the big hate bear in the 1-drop slot, but Mother of Runes is Easy second place.
Yep. Sarah Ascendant is another great one that I love to drop turn 1. Why'd you make that noise? It's such a good card.
It's so good.
It's a 6/6 on
It's
turn
so
1.
good.
It's so good.
I remember that happened to me for the first time in Commander when somebody played Sarah Ascendant on turn 1, and I was like, "How do you even beat that?" Because we didn't play removal
Because we didn't have any flyers in the deck.
Exactly. Like our life total's only getting higher. But you definitely want a lot of permanent based stuff. So I wanted to mention Cathar Commando is a really big one for this. It's 2 mana creature that you can sack it to blow up an artifact or an enchantment. Plus it has flash, which is really fun.
Fantastic.
Anything that you can do to add the density of hits to Kayla, the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're going the hate bear route, you gotta have Thalia.
Gotta have Thalia. There's 12 printings of Thalia now, so you probably have a few sitting around. Just toss a Thalia in there, you'll be good. Archon of Emeria is another fantastic card in here. Well, a fantastic card depending on who you're playing, because lots of people don't like stacks. But I myself, as a new trying to learn CDH player, have come around to saying, oh yeah, it's a playstyle, and it's sometimes acquired when a lot of people are playing very degenerate things like Storm, like combo, all those things that you need to be like, wow, I wish I brought something to stop this. And it's like that player did.
I agree. I like I have a Winota CDH deck, which is largely a hate bear stacks deck, and when you're playing at higher power levels, I think the stacks deck brings a puzzle. Yeah. That's like, okay, you're not going to be able to play without any restriction. You're going to have to figure something out. Yeah. And if you look at it as like a challenge and a different playing in a slightly different environment, you know what I mean? Like there's, I don't know. I don't play fighting games, but when you're playing in a fighting game and you're like, this is my world, so my character is super good because it's like where I'm designed to fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You don't always get to be in that world. Yeah, right. Exactly. And the stacks is just sort of like, you're going to play in this world, which is slow and full of mud.
Exactly. Imagine like any anime you've ever seen where the big hero gets to season 5 and they fight a bad guy where their powers don't work at all. Yeah. They have to find a different way to beat the bad guy. And this is you.
It's cool.
It's neat.
You're the bad guy.
Well, you're kind of the bad guy.
It's
but
fine.
Someone's got to be the bad guy. Why not you? It's cool.
I think it's fun. I really enjoy playing stacks, especially at high power tables.
It goes better with friends than it does with strangers, honestly. Sure. So obviously tell your playgroup what you're doing. At all times.
Cool one in this deck is Conspiracy Theorist. This card is so funny when it came out. 1 in red for a human shaman. It says whenever a Conspiracy Theorist attacks, you may pay 1, discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Then, whenever you discard 1 or more non-land cards, you may exile 1 of them from your graveyard. If you do, you may cast it this turn. So this is just a great way to convert the other cards that you discarded into a card that's still in your hand. So you're discarding, maybe you get a 2-drop and a 3-drop, but you also have to discard a Swords to Plowshares in order to make your mana work. Now you have it.
Right, absolutely.
Conspiracy Theorist seems cool. The 3-drop slot is where this deck really starts to shine. This first one's like a must-have.
Are we talking about Zerda here?
Yeah, I think so.
Zerda the Dawnwaker. This is 1 and then 2 red-white hybrid mana symbols. So 3 mana altogether. Legendary creature, Elemental Fox. It's a 3/3, and it does have Companion, although not relevant here. The relevant text is abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana in that cost to less than 1 mana. So notably, this will reduce the cost of Kayla's ability, which is 4, which is a lot, to half that, to 2. Which is fantastic.
Huge. So much better.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. I like Zerda a lot in this deck. Plus, you can put it into play with Kayla.
Yep.
Glenhorn Buccaneer, a classic. It'll deal damage for every card that you've discarded. And if you're doing that every turn, or if you're untapping Kayla and you're doing it again, Glenhorn Buccaneer is really going to do a lot of damage.
Yes, quite good. Now, there are a few cards here that we have that aren't even... They're not 1, 2, or 3 cost.
Right.
But they're good enough to be in the deck because of what they do.
Yeah, this first one's great. You brought this one up.
Yeah, Preston the Vanisher, which is... I love this card. Yeah. Preston the Vanisher is 3 and a white for a legendary creature, Rabbit Wizard. It is a 2/5. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, if it wasn't cast, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 0/1 white illusion. So imagine having 2 copies of her stacks piece that you put out. That is kind of gross, but it is a cute rabbit you get to put down to be like, look at my cute rabbit. Ta-da! You can't play cards. Ta-da!
That was like 2 Glenhorn Buccaneers, 2 these Archon of Maries and Aethersworn Candidates. It doesn't do anything when you have more than one of them, but it adds a layer of protection.
Yes.
Which is really, really important. 2 Sarah's Ascendants, which is actually really funny because it still gets the +5/+5, even though it's an illusion. So it's like a 5/6 if your life total is above that.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's naturally a 0/1, but it still has that ability. That's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
2 Mother of Runes, impossible. I really wanted to include Surly Badgersaur because I keep looking for a home for this card.
I've never seen this card in my life.
Find one. It's 3 in a red for a Badger Dinosaur. Come on. It says whenever you discard a creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on Surly Badgersaur. Whenever you discard a land card, create a treasure token. Whenever you discard a non-creature, non-land card, Surly Badgersaur fights up to 1 target creature you don't control.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You really want this card.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I thought so. You make some treasures, you send a badger at them. Plus, you get to cast Surly Badgersaur.
Great value. That's great. That's
really,
fantastic.
really fun. So I like that one as well. You are doing a lot of discarding, and you're hopefully getting your 1, 2, and 3 drops onto the battlefield. But when you're doing this much wheeling, you really do want to make sure that you have lots of recursion, and you're going to be a largely dedicated creature deck. So you need the board protection or the recursion to make sure you can close out a game late. And the big one I think that you should have in this deck is Ascend from Avernus.
Interesting. This is X white. Sorcery. Return all creature and planeswalker cards with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Exile Ascend from Avernus. So this will be, most of your deck will be 3 mana value or less. So basically for 6 mana, return all of it.
Yeah.
Basically all of it. Yeah.
And if you have a Preston or a Surly Badgersaur in the graveyard, you go 4 and it's 7 mana, reanimate your whole graveyard.
Ooh.
Seems pretty good. This card is, every time I've cast it, I've been extremely impressed with it. I've cast it for 9. and my opponents were tapped out, and I just did it, and it was everything I dreamed. I think this card's really, really good, and it's great in a deck with a low curve in particular. Okay.
Yeah. So this deck has a lot of options. Now, obviously, Kayla does cost 4. Everyone
3.
sees that you're
3?
going to... No, well, sorry, the ability costs 4. Kayla costs 3, so you will cast her on 3, use the ability on 4. Everyone is going to see that coming. So, sometimes it might feel like it's playing a lot of the same stuff, but because you get to discard so much of your hand and go through it, so much of your deck, I think it's going to play differently every time, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's also an artifact version of this that's going to look a lot more similar to a deck like Osgir, just a Boros graveyard artifact deck. It's cool that we can say that there's more than one.
Yes, yeah.
I want to run through a couple of the cards that you could put in there that are good, but generally it's going to look like an artifact deck.
Yeah.
Except for it's going to have Kayla in the command zone, so people are going to be confused, which is fun.
Yeah.
Notably, Kayla can find Goblin Welder, which is going to be the best card in any artifact deck.
Yeah.
It also finds Soul Ring. Great. Love that. Containment Construct is excellent and is similar to the Conspiracy Theorist, but better.
Yeah.
Oswald Fiddlebender is a 2-mana creature. He's the birthing pod for artifacts. This was a cool one that I wanted to mention. It's Mishra Excavation Prodigy.
Oh.
Is 2 in a red for an uncommon human artificer. He's a 2/1 with haste. It also says whenever you discard 1 or more artifact cards, add red. This ability triggers only once each turn. So it, in a way, halves the cost of Kayla.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Plus, you can hit it off of Kayla and put it into play.
Oh, yeah, that's also very good. Yeah, having haste means you can do this immediately. Also, if you just are digging for answers, which is quite good too.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
It's a tidy little card.
Yeah.
Ways to untap Kayla to double her ability, like 1,000-year elixir that we mentioned before, Battle Mage's Bracers. Those are going to be powerful as well.
Yes.
Okay. Kayla's sweet. It feels like there's a ton of things that you can do with this deck. And honestly, I think the only reason that she isn't more popular is because there's a ton of ways that you could build this deck.
Yeah, maybe people are just too scared.
It's daunting.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, I can see that. I'm very interested in Kayla. It's very cool.
Okay. This next one caught a lot of attention when it was first printed. Do you want to read this one?
Yeah, sure. This is Mahadi, Emporium Master. It is 1, a black and a red for a legendary creature, Cat Devil. It is a 3/3 that reads, At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. Pretty good. As we all know, treasures are very good in Commander, and notably this says each creature, not each creature you control, so it does count your opponent's creatures.
Yeah. It also doesn't say non-token creature, which is the other limitation that's also put on these.
Also true. Yeah.
It just has to be on your turn.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know that there are powerful treasure commanders, Prosper being the daddy of all of them.
Of course.
But we're also used to seeing just red-black treasure decks in general. Like Ob Nixilis Captive Kingpin is often built as like a treasure-focused deck. Rakdos treasures are sweet, and I feel like I don't see enough of Mahadi. There's only 1,122 decks on EDH Rec for this card right now.
Yeah, and that's a shame because I think Mahadi is very cool, and it's a cat devil, which you don't see very often. That's a cool little flavor thing as well. It is an uncommon commander, which maybe Prosper and Ob Nixilis have outclassed just because of they're so flashy commanders. But there's cool things you can do. Any of those creatures like Plague Crafter or Fleshbag Marauder that are edict effects for the board, which means your opponents sacrifice a creature each. You sacrifice one, which will be the Plague Crafter. And that means you make 4 treasure tokens, end of turn.
I mean,
quite good.
And that's great. That's coming from one card, and you still have the edict effect. There's a ton of creatures that do that on ETB, so you could run all of those. That will get a little grindy, so make sure you have a plan to close out the game.
Yes, yeah.
Or you could just go more token sack, like Aristocrat style. Something like Jadar Ghoulcaller of Nephalia is one of my favorite little like junk creators.
Yep.
If you don't have a Decayed Zombie, you make a Decayed Zombie.
Yeah. You'll always have a friend.
So he always has a dead guy with him. It's weird, Jadar. Leave him at home.
Weekend at Bernie's all the time is what this guy's doing.
Lifetime at Bernie's. So he makes a little token that you can always sacrifice and get another treasure out of.
Yeah.
The coolest one flavor-wise is Zerzoth Chaos Rider.
Chaos Rider. Another devil. This is 2 and a red for a devil. A 2/3. Whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, you create a 1/1 red devil creature token. When this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. It makes a devil token, which is great. Whenever 1 or more devil tokens you control attack 1 or more players, you and those players each draw a card, then discard a card at random. Very chaotic. That's quite good. Yeah.
You've got a devil in the command zone. Zerzoth himself is a devil, so that first attack, you send it at like 2 players. Then you draw a discard, they draw a discard, you make 2 devils.
Yes.
And now you've got fodder to sacrifice that deal damage when they die, and you've messed up your opponent's hands. They love it.
Yeah. Well, they won't. I don't know if they're going to love it.
They're going to love it.
They might love it the first time.
It's fun. At random, we love it.
At random.
I keep trying to make Zerzoth in Winnow to work.
Oh.
I think it's pretty fun in CDH.
Yeah, I can see that.
So there's a lot of ways that you could just sack a ton of creatures, make a ton of treasures, and then have an even bigger turn next turn. A cool way to do it, I think, is doing more. You could go more board wipe focused, and have ways to either protect your commander or run more one-sided board wipes. You just kill your opponent's stuff, make a ton of treasures, so you have a really big turn next turn.
Yeah.
Mithril Coat, I think, is good in that kind of deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a 3-mana artifact that reads Flash Indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, attach a target legendary creature you control, which, board wipe into this is, hey, I still live and I get a billion treasure tokens if it's your turn.
Yeah.
But that's quite good.
Plus it is flash, so it's something that you can spend your treasures on after you pass the turn.
Absolutely.
I think the more instant speed stuff that you have, the better, because what you don't want to do is make all these treasure tokens and then pass the turn, and then something happens in one of your opponent's turns where you either lose the treasures or you need, you want to make sure that you get the value out of them.
Absolutely.
So flash stuff, instant speed stuff, always very good. I think this might be a Gift of Doom deck. I'm obsessed with this card. I keep trying to put it in decks. This is a morph. And you're going to want to morph it, so you're going to pay 3 and put it face down. But when you morph it up, the morph cost is sacrifice another creature. And when you play the morph cost, that doesn't use a stack. It's at instant speed, so there's no way to respond to it. But you sacrifice another creature, and it turns into an aura that gives the enchanted creature death touch and indestructible.
Ooh, that's sneaky.
Yeah, so you've got a little thing, and then if somebody answers Mahadi, or if you want to cast a board wipe, you sacrifice one of your things, pop it on your commander.
Yeah.
It's really cool card, and I haven't really found a place for it.
I think it's worth it just for the look of when you say, I cast a morph creature. And your opponent's like, what? What year is it?
Yeah. The fun thing about morph creatures is people just don't attack you.
They don't. They're like, that could be anything.
They really, really don't want to know what it is. It's better than a ghostly prison, honestly.
Yeah. It's very funny, actually. I want to play that card in more decks. Actually, I like that a lot.
It's really cool. It's also like you can sacrifice a creature at instant speed, which is just always a good thing. Like,
when people don't see that you have a sack outlet on the board and you do something with it, that's very sneaky. Yeah, really. I like that a lot.
And then you want big one-sided board wipes like Ingaruk's Wake. Necromantic Selection allows you to board wipe and then bring back your commander so that Mahadi is there to make all the treasure tokens.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, it's just a treasure
Put
deck.
in, Mayhem Devils and Manufacturers and Mirkwood Bats. Oh my goodness. Yeah, notably you can, one way to play this deck is to just ramp. Don't play your commander until you have a board wipe, then board wipe, then play your commander.
Right, yeah.
Then you have tons of mana.
Yeah, just
everyone else has nothing.
Mahadi.
Yeah.
Then next turn, you're like, Nadir's and I played Mirkwood Bats. You guys die.
Yep. Cool. That's great. Yeah.
You could cast a board wipe, then cast your commander into like a Reckless Fireweaver, then just move to your end step and make like six to a million treasure tokens.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
This deck's cool, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
And we've done a lot of talk about junk decks, so those are the cards that would finish the game for Mahadi.
Exactly.
Cool.
Next up, Lulu, Loyal Holophant.
She's a cutie.
Now we've been talking about quite a few D&D
a lot from Baldur's Gate.
Yeah,
it is perhaps because I'm obsessed with this set.
I love these cards. Being D&D players ourselves, I get a huge kick out of these. And this is one campaign I did get to play where Lulu was, the character that helped us out, and it was just so cute.
Fun.
So Lulu's wonderful. Lulu, Loyal Holophant, is 3 and a white for a legendary creature, Elephant Angel. Aww. It is a 3/2 that reads, flying. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each tapped creature you control, then untap them and choose a background. Also is on there. So it's like a cute Cathar's Crusade, sort of. A cutie crusade.
It's a cutie crusade. That's what they said about the Crusades, actually.
Oh, too soon.
Too soon. Yeah, so I think a lot of people looked at Lulu and were like, it's a +1 counter commander.
Yeah.
And you're like, it is, kind of, but it's also like a drum bellower.
Yeah,
it untaps your whole board.
Makes them bigger and untaps them, so...
At the very least, she gives them like +1/+1 and vigilance.
Yeah.
And at the very most, you get to use all your abilities twice.
At the low cost of a fetch.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
A permanent leaving the battlefield. That's cracking a treasure token. That's cracking a fetch. That's blinking a creature. That's having a token die in combat. There's a million ways to trigger Lulu. It feels free.
It's harder not to trigger Lulu, honestly. Yeah.
There's a ton of, we're going to talk about a lot of different ways that you can build Lulu. We're going to try and go through them very quickly because the cool thing about background commanders is that they're flexible and you get to be creative and follow something that speaks to you. But there are some cool things that just go in every Lulu deck, I think.
Yeah.
Mother of Runes is incredible in this deck. Okay. You can give something unblockable on your turn and then untap it for protection around the table.
Gotta protect your cutie, of course. Yes, yeah. Mother of Runes.
Scholar of the New Horizons is great with this deck.
I don't think I've seen this card. Scholar of New Horizons is a 1 and a white. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. It is a 1/1. Tap, remove a counter from a permanent you control. Search your library for a Plains card and reveal it. If an opponent controls more lands than you, you may put that card onto the battlefield. If you don't put the card on the battlefield, then put it in your hand. So yeah, this is great. Ramp and white. Fantastic. Yeah, this is great.
It's ramp and white or that turns into draw in white, which is really solid. And Lulu will put a counter on it to replace it and untap it so you can use it twice each turn.
That's great.
Seems
That's
really
really
sweet.
good.
Mikaeus, the Lunarch, is another way to do this. It's X and a white for a human cleric. Mikaeus enters with X +1/+1 counters on him, and it has an activated ability that says tap, put a +1 counter on Mikaeus, and another one that says tap, remove a +1 counter from Mikaeus, put a +1 counter on each other creature you control.
Quite good.
So again, Lulu will always keep Mikaeus loaded with counters, so you can tap him again and put more counters on.
Absolutely.
On stuff.
Yeah, that's quite good. Mikaeus is another card that I don't see very often. I feel like it's been outclassed, but it goes fantastic in this deck.
Yeah. A lot of good synergy.
Yeah.
Okay, so the way that backgrounds work, if you haven't played with backgrounds before, is there are legendary enchantments that are basically have partner with the creatures that have, say, choose a background on them. And there's multiple in each color. We picked some that we thought would go well with Lulu. And you can follow your heart if Lulu speaks to you, where I just can't imagine her not. Look into her big dumb eyes.
Oh. So the first one we have here is a sacrifice build using Agent of the Iron Throne. Seems a little dark for Lulu, but we'll try it.
Look, she's got a dark streak.
I'm going to kill you. This
In
is
the name of the throne.
This is 2 and a black for a background legendary enchantment that reads, commanded creatures you own have, whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. Yes, so this is a sacrifice build.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of things with this. Obviously, you want permanents to leave the battlefield anyway, so trigger Lulu. And this will obviously get it done because you will have ways to create tokens or other things that will go to the bin and trigger Lulu, which is great.
Black-white aristocrats, you could go either treasures or tokens. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with it. I think if you're going to go the tokens route, there's a number of creatures that just have like tap abilities that make tokens. Then Lulu will untap them and you can do it again. Like a Thraben Doomsayer is a 3-mana human that has an activated ability that just says tap, make a white human. That human's going to die. Sorry about it, but or he'll get really big.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of things that say, like, whenever a creature you control with a counter on it dies, something happens.
Yeah.
The Skyclave Shadow Cat says whenever something with a counter on it dies, you draw a card. Or another underrated commander that I like a lot is Felisa, Fang of Silverquill. And that says whenever a non-token creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, make that many Inklings.
That can get out of hand very quickly, especially because if Lulu is making those Inklings bigger, and they are flying, is great. That's going to go wild. Yes, that's great. That's very good.
So that's the black-white build. There's also a red-white treasure build that's with Guild Artisan as the background. 1 and a red for a legendary background. Commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if an opponent has more life than that player, you create 2 treasure tokens.
That's quite good, and notably those are sackable, which will trigger Lulu and get the ball rolling for whatever you got to do. So
and Lulu has flying, so it's easy enough to attack the player that has more life.
That's quite good. That's quite good. I like that one a lot.
Coolest tech in this version of the deck is Prosperous Partnership.
Oh, interesting.
This is from the new Capenna Commander decks. It's 1 red and white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you make 2 citizens, and then it has an activated ability that says tap 3 untapped creatures you control, create a treasure token.
Okay.
So you can tap your whole board, so you can untap them with Lulu, you make the treasure tokens that you can sacrifice, plus she gives you tokens that you can make bigger.
That is a prosperous partnership. I like that. That's wonderful.
Good.
Yeah, very good.
Also, Magda.
Oh, good old Magda.
Tap Magda. Get some stuff.
Good old Magda.
Seems fine.
Fantastic. Oh, I see a Filigree Vector here, which is another great card.
This one's cool.
Yeah, I have this in, it came in the Brimaz Precon, which is very good. It is 3 and a white for a Phyrexian Construct 1/1. Whenever this card enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of any number of target creatures and a charge counter on each of any number of target artifacts.
Seems
and
good.
It also has 1 and a tap, sacrifice another artifact, proliferate. Which, I mean, if you're going to put counters on things, this also has the sack outlet, so something will leave the battlefield to trigger Lulu. Oh,
and it has a tap ability, so it naturally can be untapped, so you can do it twice per turn. It's really doing the thing.
It's quite good.
I like this version. I was looking at the black-white version, but the red-white version is sweet.
Yeah, that's quite good.
Oh,
yeah.
Lulu, like money bags, Lulu. I'm into it. We're rich.
You're gonna die.
The next version that I think is cool is blue and white with Feywild Visitor. 2 and a blue for a legendary enchantment background. Commander creatures you own have, whenever one or more non-token creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, so up to 3, you create a 1/1 blue fairy dragon creature token with flying. So it makes tokens for each player that you hit.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and I was like, it's like a blue-white Flyers deck. Like, that's pretty good. It's easy to tap. Then I did a little research, and I was like, oh, this is a Convoke deck.
Yeah, okay. I can
Blue-white Convoke is sick.
Especially when you're untapping your board at the end of your turn. Quite good. Yes. That is scary. That is scary.
So, of course, you want Invasion of Segovia. That card is broken. You should put it in your decks. You have a flyer that can flip it, no problem, and it flips into Catus, Sea Tyrant of Segovia. Which gives your non-creature spells Convoke. And then untap some creatures.
Yeah, so basically everything in your hand will be coming out. Well, basically anything can be brought out with when you're making all these tokens along with Lulu, and in return you can Convoke. Very good. That's quite good.
Plus you got the flyers as a payoff.
Flyers, as we've talked about, notably very good at all times.
I did want to mention Transcendent Message. Have you played with this card yet?
No. Let me read this.
Busted.
X blue, 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 blue. So four blues. So it is an instant that reads Convoke. Draw X cards. A very simple card, but I see what you're saying here. Yes. In a deck that makes a bunch of tokens that will untap at the end of your turn. Quite good. Quite good.
I don't think I've cast this card for X less than like 8.
Yeah.
Like and it's an instant, so you can do it on end step and you're just not punished.
Yeah.
It's really quite good.
That's quite good.
All right, what's this next version?
This one is...
There's 2 options here.
Yeah, we have Far Traveler and Candlekeep Sage. Now, this is for doing the Blink version of the deck. Mm-hmm. So Far Traveler is a background that is 2 and a white for commander creatures you own have, at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target tapped creature you control, then returns the battlefield under its owner's control. So, already... checks the box that Lulu wants of leaving and returning and untapping. Fantastic. The other one is Candlekeep Sage, which is 2 and a blue for another background that reads, commander creatures you own have, when this creature enters or leaves the battlefield, draw a card. Okay, that's good. That's very good. Another blue-white version that will notably draw you cards. And since you do want things to leave the battlefield anyways, and if you are blinking your commander, very good. Yes.
Might as well be Lulu.
Might as well be Lulu.
Leaving, coming back. Hi!
Yeah. That's adorable and scary.
You do have to figure out how to like get him tapped again. But a blue-white blink deck is super, super fun. And there were some cool options that were worth mentioning. Preston's
back.
And you can have a little cutie patootie deck.
Aww.
Full of little tooties.
That'd be great, actually. I love that. I love the flavor of that.
I think Gilrain Dunedain Protector is very good in this deck. It's 2 and a white for Human Noble. Has an activated ability that says 2 and tap, exile another target creature you control. You may return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If you don't, at the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control with a vigilance counter and a lifelink counter on it.
Whoa.
So this is going to be more for the, you're a little less worried about the +1/+1 counters because you're blinking stuff.
Sure.
But there are going to be creatures that you want loaded up with counters, so you do have some kind of win con, and this she gives them vigilance and lifelink.
And they're counters, so it is permanent. Like essentially until they leave the battlefield. That is very good.
Can blink something else, and with Candlekeep Sage, you draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
So yeah, on your turn, you activate Gilrain, you blink Lulu, draw 2 cards. She comes back, and then she's tapped. Lulu sees her, untaps her, and then you can do it on end step and give something else these counters.
That's pretty good.
Seems pretty sweet.
Pretty good.
There's a lot of cool options for that version of the deck. But of course, there is a much simpler deck, which is just green-white +1/+1 counters. The background for this one would be Master Chef, probably. We've talked a lot about +1/+1 counter decks. It's a fairly traditional build, and I think there's probably cooler stuff to do with it. But the coolest thing I found for +1/+1 counter version of this deck is Kami of Whispered Hopes or Rish Karpima Renegade, which are both, and there's more of these, but creatures that care about counters on them, and they make mana for the number of counters on them, or they're allowed to make mana because they have a counter on them. Yes. So you can tap them for mana, and then Lulu will untap them, and you can have some like instant speed kind of cool stuff going on.
Absolutely. And I think it goes without saying that the Ozolith is welcome in all these decks that +1/+1 counter.
Ozolith is just that kind of card.
Busted good.
The final thing I wanted to mention, there isn't a very good background for it, but this was the most flavorful one. It's Sword Coast Sailor.
Oh my god, pirate elephant.
And it's
Pirate
one-
elephant angel.
You give her a boat.
Oh,
Make her a captain.
so cute. I love it.
It gives her unblockable, basically, which isn't as good. But I want a white-blue version of Lulu that's cars.
Okay.
So you can use vehicles to tap down all your creatures. And then you can attack with your vehicles, and then they're tapped, and she puts counters on all of them and untaps them.
And then untaps them, yes.
And then you can crew them on the defense.
That's very good. Yeah.
Lulu's in cars getting coffee.
That's great. I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did not think of that. That's great.
But if you're building a Lulu deck in any color, I do think that vehicles are pretty good because they allow you to tap down your stuff without sending them to combat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Quite good. Lulu's got lots of options.
Lulu's got options.
Yeah, but only 1,000 decks, so let's pump that up.
1,014 decks
Ridiculous.
with any background.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
She's too cute for this.
Too cute.
All right. This next one is my boyfriend has this deck and it's gross. And it feels like more people should know about it.
This is Stangg, Echo Warrior. It is 2 and a red and a green for a legendary creature, human warrior. It is a 3/4 with a lot of text. Let's read. It says, whenever Stangg, Echo Warrior attacks, create Stangg Twin, a legendary 3/4 red and green human warrior creature token. It enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. For each aura and equipment attached to Stangg, the original Stangg, create a token that's a copy attached to Stangg Twin. And then you sacrifice all tokens created this way at the beginning of next end step. So this is a Voltron copy deck, sort of, right?
It's like Voltron. It's Gruul auras is what it is.
Gruul auras, yes.
Because every single combat, you make a brother, and then you stack the brother up with all of this stuff.
Right.
And what that does is it means you have 2 big guys.
Yeah.
And one of them's a free attacker.
Right.
Like it can go anywhere.
Right.
But also you have a ton of enchantment and equipment ETBs.
Yes. Oh, that's true because they do enter the battlefield. So it will trigger if this is obviously an Enchantress deck.
Yeah.
Oh, you will draw maybe 3 or 4 cards based on what you have on the board. Ooh, that's quite good.
Yeah. So there are some cool equipments that you can put in this deck. I think this deck is cooler and more powerful as an enchantment deck, but I gotta mention Skull Clamp is really, really, really good.
Oh, because you're gonna sacrifice.
You sacrifice it at end of turn, so you're gonna draw 2 cards every time. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite good. And then Basilisk Collar is quite good. This deck really relies on you finding trample, so the death touch and trample thing is a big deal, and the deck doesn't have a ton of defense unless you find specific cards. So the lifelink is imperative.
Right.
But let's talk about some auras because they're the coolest part.
Wow, yeah.
So there's a lot of auras with ETBs, like the Rune.
Rune of Might, yes, enchant permanent when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. So basically anytime you make a copy of the Stangg Twin, this will also trigger, and then it will give a +1/+1 trample, all for 2 mana.
Yeah.
It's quite good.
So, and if you're making it over and over again, then you're drawing, and then if you have like an Enchantress on board, then you draw 2 when it enters.
Yeah.
Cartouche of Strength is another strong ETB. When it enters the battlefield, you may have enchanted creature fight target creature and opponent controls.
Wow.
So you're just fighting stuff for free every turn.
So draw a card and removal.
Yeah.
Already very good.
You gotta
one with a
you gotta
Kami.
read this one.
One with a Kami. Yes, I actually know this one. This is 3 and a green. It's an enchantment aura. Flash. Enchant creature you control. When an enchanted creature or another modified creature you control dies, you create X 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens, where X is that creature's power.
Yeah.
So this will happen every turn.
Yes.
Because
and you have 2 of them.
Yeah, and you have 2 of them. That's wild. That's very good. You're gonna have a tiny army of 1/1
little
colorless
guys.
spirit creatures. Yes, that's very good. Yeah, I wanted to put this in Blanca, but it just didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
Here though, quite good when you can double it up, and wow. And
Really?
Flash is fantastic
It's
here.
really sweet.
Quite good.
Sticky Fingers is another very good one. This is when an enchanted creature dies, you draw a card, and it has menace, and when it deals combat damage, you make a treasure. Plus, it's only 1 mana.
Yeah.
It is an Enchantress deck, so you're going to run the Enchantresses. Whenever you cast, you draw. But the better Enchantresses, of course, are the Constellation Enchantresses. So Setessan Champion and the other one.
Eidolon of Blossom.
Eidolon Blossoms. Yeah, that
The
one.
other one.
And the other one. Those 2.
We got there.
Those are going to draw you a ton of cards.
Yes.
Because every time they enter, you draw that many. But this one is cracked
Yeah,
in this deck.
Chishiro the Shattered Blade. 2 red-green for a Snake Samurai. A 4/4. Whenever an aura or equipment enters a battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 red spirit creature token with Menace. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each modified creature you control. Wow. So let's say you have 3 auras.
Just reasonable 3.
Just with 3 auras.
Yeah.
So you make 3 2/2 creatures with Menace.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And then you put counters on it.
That's fantastic.
Very cool. Of course, this deck relies very heavily on its commander. So you're going to need a ton of ways to protect Stangg so he can live to make his brother. Tamiyo Safekeeping, Tyvar's Stand, Heroic Intervention, anything that you can do to protect this card because it is scary and you are investing a lot into it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Notably, I think if I read this correctly, so the Stangg twin enters the battlefield attacking. It doesn't say attacking the same player, correct?
You can
choose where it goes. So you could spread that out or just go for 1 because this feels like you're literally doing a 2v3 at this point because you're doubling your commander and attacking. So you have a lot of options there in combat. But I think if you have a Stangg and it can't attack, you go for it.
Absolutely.
You got to go for it. It's not going to live very long.
No. It's a use it or lose it deck for sure.
So if you're one of those players that is like, I don't know if I should attack or not, this is not that deck for you.
No.
But it could make you in one of those players that does attack aggressively.
This is a deck for the bold, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also like when you attack, if you have one of these card draw engines on board, if you do get blown out, if something does happen to Stangg, hypothetically, you've drawn 4 or 5 cards and you're not in the hole here.
Yeah.
So making sure that you have a lot of these enchantments that turn this ability into card advantage is really important because you are really putting all of your eggs in one Stangg basket.
Yeah, one Stangg basket. There are a few enchantments that also give creatures hexproof.
Yeah.
And asceticism is another one that's sort of a world one. Not a world one technically, but for all your creatures we'll give
just
them
safe.
Essentially keep them safe. So if you're looking at, making the enchantment version of this, I think that those are very good in the deck as well.
And for those of you who have been looking for a place to put this card, it is at last a Storm Herald deck. 2 and a red for a human shaman with haste. When it enters the battlefield, return any number of aura cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to creatures you control. Exile those auras at the beginning of your next end step. If those auras would leave the battlefield, exile them instead of putting them anywhere else.
Okay.
So this means like I have Stangg, but I don't have any cards in hand. I don't have any auras on. You slam Storm's Herald, you load up the guy, you get 1 big attack, draw a ton of cards.
This is a 3-mana finisher.
Yeah, it's sweet.
That's wild. That's really cool.
Look, my boyfriend built this deck. He's SummyTummies on Moxfield. You can go see his list. It's nuts. It's so much fun to play, and I can't believe more people don't have it. There's only like 998 Stangg decks on EDH Rec, and as you can see, it's obnoxious.
Yeah, no, I do, and I don't want to play against it.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah. This is another one that your boyfriend has built, correct?
I know. I keep talking about his decks today. He built some cool decks. What can I say? It's Grothama, All-Devouring.
Yum, yum, yum.
Grothama is a worm for 3 green. It is a 10/8 for 5. But it says other creatures have. Whenever this creature attacks, you may have it fight Grothama. So every creature except Grothama has this ability. Then it says when Grothama leaves the battlefield, each player draws cards equal to the amount of damage dealt to Grothama this turn by sources they controlled.
Okay, this is a confusing card. Break it down for me, Rachel. What does it actually mean?
So if Grothama dies, is flickered, is bounced, any number of things, for the amount of damage that you've done to Grothama, you draw a card. And it also gives you a way to deal that damage.
Right.
So like let's say I am playing against Grothama. I have a 5/5. I have like a 5/5 and a 3/3.
Okay.
If I attack, I can have both my 5/5 and my 3/3 fight Grothama.
Yeah.
Now my creatures are both going to die, and Grothama's going to die. But I will draw 8 cards because I've done 8 damage to that Grothama.
Yeah.
As long as the Grothama player doesn't have a trick.
Yeah.
A way to give it indestructible. A way to give it to regenerate it. A way to protect it in any way, which they do. They do. Don't throw away your stuff. It's not a good plan to fight a 10-8 in a deck designed to not die.
So this feels like one of those circus things where you go up and it's like, come on and fight the big burly
Yeah,
bird.
it is rigged.
I'm sure you can take it. Come on, kid, you can do it. Okay, I'll do it. Ha ha!
Yeah.
Here's a spell that you didn't expect that makes it indestructible, and you've wasted your creatures.
Yikes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's also just an overstated creature. It's a 5-mana 10-8.
Yeah, 5-mana 10-8 is oof.
So this is the kind of deck that's just like, it runs all the cards we've talked about before, like a greater good. Sack it, draw, draw 10, discard 3.
Yep.
Grothama is a draw spell. Functionally, you can turn it into a win con. Obviously, it's a 10-8, but mostly this is a mono green big draws deck.
Okay.
So it reminds me sort of like a Yargle and Multani.
Sure. Yes.
Which you're like, it's an 18-6, don't hit me. And it's like, they're going to sack it. Don't worry about it.
That's not what it's about.
That's not the plan here. So again, you're going to want all of the protection. You do have a big thing that everyone can fight. So Heroic Intervention, Tamiyo Safekeeping, a very fun one, Not of This World.
Ooh, that's a 7-mana tribal instant Eldrazi. Counter target spell or ability that targets a permanent you control. Not of This World costs 7 less to cast if it targets a spell or ability that targets a creature you control, power 7 or greater. So, okay, interesting. I would never have thought of this card.
Yeah, it's a free
spell. I would never have thought of this card. That is wild. Not of This World, yeah. It's a free counterspell.
Yeah. Also probably worth looking at if you're playing Voltron decks or you're doing Yargle and Multani, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, maybe even Stangg could get there,
exactly.
That's wild, yeah.
You are also going to want big things to fight your Grothama.
Because your creatures also have this,
right?
Correct?
Yes.
So basically you can attack your own worm and then blink it or do something else to make it leave the battlefield, and then it comes back and you draw all those cards. Okay.
Or just have it die. Like if you fight it with a Cultivator Colossus, that's an 18-18, you draw 18 cards, you're like, I spent 5 mana, I drew 18 cards, that's fine.
Works for me.
That's...
It's pretty good, yeah.
I'll see you later, Grothama.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want big, bad guys like Cultivator Colossus, Multani, Marrow Sorcerer. The best one in this deck is for sure Mossbridge Troll.
Mossbridge
Love a troll today.
Yeah, we're big fans of trolls. This is a 5 green for a troll. It's a 5/5 that says, if Mossbridge Troll would be destroyed, regenerate it. Tap any number of untapped creatures you control other than Mossbridge Troll with total power 10 or greater. Mossbridge Troll gets +20 until end of turn.
Your commander has 10 power.
What? Okay.
So it's like a 7-mana draw 30.
Okay.
It's very silly, but it's a ton of fun, and he's got a silly little belly.
Now that's a troll. That's cool.
You also don't have to win the fight. You could fight it with little stuff like a stuffy doll.
Stuffy doll. That's great.
Yeah, so you can throw 10 damage around.
Fantastic.
You can put a Druid's Call on your commander or on something else with Indestructible. And now anytime anybody fights your Grothama, you make that many squirrels. Go nuts.
That's great too. Go nuts. Nice.
Yeah. And of course, you want ways for Grothama to leave the battlefield on your own accord. Greater Good, like we mentioned before.
Yep.
Momentous Fall, I think, is a really important card in this deck.
Oh, sure. Sack a creature. You draw cards equal to sack a creature's power, and then you gain life equal to its toughness. Sure. So draw 10, gain 8, for instance, speed 4. Pretty good. Pretty good.
In response to if something goes wrong, you can be like, oh, let me get out of here before, so my opponent doesn't draw 10 cards.
Absolutely.
Worth noting that Grothama is a bit of a slow roll. You don't play Grothama and pass.
Yeah.
You have a plan for this Grothama, and that plan could be Sword of Hearth and Home. Yeah, this is one blinks Grothama and gives the equipped creature protection from green.
Oh,
so you can fight Grothama with a 4/4 or something like that.
Okay.
Deal the 4 damage to Grothama, blink Grothama on combat damage, and then you'll draw 4 cards.
That's great. I would not have thought of that interaction because I figured protection would mean no damage.
There's no damage dealt to the creature that's fighting.
Oh, I see.
But it still deals damage to
Grothama. Okay, so it's a way to protect it so your creature doesn't die.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah,
so it
that's
gives you
fantastic.
like a free fight and a free little blink of Grothama.
That's very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like a real slam dunk in this kind of deck.
Yeah.
So that's Grothama. It's big and green. It's stompy. It's the kind of card that that you're like, I have 35 cards in my hand.
Yeah.
Now what?
I can definitely, this one I understand why it is 947 decks, because it is, looking at it, reading it, you're like, this card is weird, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And now reading through all these cards that do things that are so unique, I can definitely see people jumping on building this. This is very cool.
Yeah, Grothama is like, I don't want to say, Grothama is obviously underplayed. It's 947 decks. That's not that many decks. There is a small but fierce population that have championed Grothama for a long time. And that's sort of led by Bennie Smith, who is over at Star City Games and has written many, many articles about Grothama and has a sweet Grothama deck that has changed a lot through the years. So if you want to build Grothama, go look up Bennie's stuff because he's the expert.
That's very cool. Excellent. What do we got next?
One more card. You want to read this one?
Yeah, let's do it. This is Kadrik, Soul Kindler. It is 2, a red and a white for a dwarf wizard. It is a 4/3 that reads, the legend rule doesn't apply to tokens you control.
Cool.
Whenever another non-token legendary permanent enters a battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, create a token that's a copy of it. That token gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Huh. Okay. So this is token clones, non-legendary, or legendary token clones.
Yes.
Very cool.
And I think a lot of people looked at Kadrik and were like, well, that's going in the 99 of Dihada because that's where they found it.
Sure. Yes.
So a lot of people sort of naturally gravitated to building Mardu legends.
Yep.
And didn't look at Kadrik as a commander in his own right.
Yeah.
And he's a very different deck than Dihada, which is sort of like, it's a graveyard deck, it's a treasure deck. Kadrik is an aggressive token legendary deck.
Yeah. It's interesting because mostly Dihada is the different one because it doesn't contain blue, which is usually what you would think of for clones. Obviously, we talked about Esix earlier, which is Simic, and this one contains even one less color, which is only red-white.
Right. It's those red clones, those the Jaxus clones, the Kiki-Jiki clones.
The Kiki-Jikis, yeah, absolutely. The Impulse clones,
Impulse clones.
Yeah, is that a thing?
I don't know.
It makes sense though, right?
The here today, gone tomorrow clones. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really, really cool. There's a lot of neat ways to obviously have very explosive turns with Kadrik, but he also, like, in addition to just giving you 2 of these legends, he also gives 1 haste. So it's really good with legends that have activated abilities or attack triggers. Yeah. So Atali Primal Storm is a perfect one to go
exactly the one I was thinking of.
Immediate, like 2 Atali's already scary, but like Atali and Atali now is like Atali later and Atali now is like, ah! Well, that one's just happening because we have to answer real Atali also.
Yes.
Which is super, super sweet.
That's very cool, yeah. Jiru and Hazaret as well. Human God. This is 2 red, white for a 5/4. As long as you have 1 or fewer cards in hand, this card has vigilance and haste. So this means they're both going to attack, regardless of what's happening there.
Yeah, if you have no cards in hand.
You have no cards in hand.
Hopefully you have cards in hand.
Yeah, well, yeah. But it is red-white, so
it's Boros, who knows?
Whenever this card attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may exile a legendary creature card, which you will have because that's what you're building. Put the rest on the bottom of your library at a random order until end turn. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Did you do that twice? You do that twice because if you get them both to attack?
Yeah, if they can both attack, then you get to do that twice.
And then those also make clones.
Those also ETB, yeah. So you can pay the 1 to make token copies of those.
That's the dream.
That's so much power on, like, Kadrik comes down turn 4, turn 5. Hopefully at some point you've ramped, you've got a spare treasure or something like that.
Yeah.
You can Jeru and make a copy, or you could like Nayali and then make a copy. Nayali says attacking tokens you control have double strike. Ooh. Oh my God. Oh no.
Oh no.
It also says whenever 1 or more tokens you control attack a player, exile the top card of your library during any turn you attacked with a token, you may play that card. So it's also card draw on a legendary that immediately makes a 3/3 double strike and starts swinging.
That's awesome.
I do think it's a sacrifice, right? Yes, it's sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, so it's really good with dies triggers.
Huh. I can't imagine how that would be helpful to us.
No. I don't know any legends with dies triggers.
Oh, wait, here's a dragon.
Yeah,
Here's a dragon that does it. Owl. Is this pronounced owl?
I say AO, but I
AO?
really don't. I'm not confident about it.
I'll follow your example. AO, the Dawn Sky, is a 3 white dragon spirit flying vigilance 5/4, already pretty good. When this card dies, you get to choose one, which is either look at the top 7 cards of your library, put any number of non-land permanent cards to a value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, or put 2+1/+1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or a vehicle. Those are both great. Those are fantastic. And the token's going to die. The other one stays, so you get to do it effectively twice.
2 times. Unless you figure out how to do this ETB more than 1 time.
How could you do that?
I don't know. I've never heard of ways of making
in
more than
white
1 token. It's Mondrak!
Hey! Horrifying.
And you can make 2 Mondraks. So you go Mondrak, make a Mondrak, then you have 2 Mondraks.
Oh, no.
And then the next one that you come down, you go to play, I'll play a Tali, pay 1. I'll make, what? 3 Atalis. 4 Atalis? A number of Atalis.
A number of Atalis. You would need to protect your commander here because as soon as it dies, that legend rule kicks back in, correct?
Yes.
So it will just kind of wipe out half your board.
Must be careful, yeah.
Yes, must be careful. There is a kill and remove half your board button there. So you do have to protect your commander quite a bit here.
There are some very cool moves in this deck, as you would imagine. My favorite cool move is Flagstones of Trocaire.
What do we got here?
Flagstones of Trocaire is a legendary permanent.
Oh.
It is in this case, it is a legendary white land, and it has an ability that says, when Flagstones of Trocaire is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may search your library for a plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So when you play this land, you can pay 1 and make a token copy of Flagstones of Trocaire, and then you haven't lost any mana, and on your end step, when you sacrifice it, you go find a plains. It's ramp.
That's pretty sweet.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. I love that.
You know, legendary permanence includes planeswalkers.
Oh, I did not even think about that. Double planeswalkers is nasty.
Yeah, I mean, there's 100 ways this could go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can go through a list of cool Boros planeswalkers, but I bet you could find them.
Yeah.
There's you make 2, you plus 1 of them, you keep the one you plussed, and you minus the one that
that's going to leave.
Your token
Absolutely.
copy. This is really, really strong.
That's bonkers, yeah.
One I liked is Zerium Golden Wind.
It's a griffin that is a 3 and 1 white for a 3/4 flying. Whenever a griffin you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 2/2 white griffin creature token with flying. Cute. Simple.
Zerium is very basic, but it is not the kind of card that aids removal spells, and it is the kind of card that snowballs out of control.
Yes, yeah, that is true, I guess, yeah.
So if you have 1 Zerium with haste and it comes down, you make a griffin. You do have to, you make 2 griffins because you have 2 Zeriums.
Yes.
So now you have,
yes.
Next turn you'll have 3 griffins, which means you'll make 6 griffins.
Oh, yes.
So Zerium is just one of those things where you're like, I don't want to spend a removal spell on the Zerium Golden Wind, but if I don't, I'm dead because I didn't bring any flyers.
Because I didn't bring any flyers. That's what we learned. Yeah, nobody brings flyers. That can get out of hand. That's awesome. I see you have Ephemerate here. Gandalf the White. Yeah, one of the newer cards. You may cast legendary spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. So now you can flash out a legendary, make a clone of it.
Yep.
Very cool.
It also doubles your ETBs, which means it triggers your commander twice.
Oh.
So now you can pay 1/1 and make more tokens.
That's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah.
It's
is cool.
Scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This deck is one of those things they cast their commander and you're like, what is it going to be? It could be so bad.
Yeah. As long as they're not playing a morph, I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of really sweet stuff that you can do with Kadrik. I was really surprised that it didn't take off as a commander. There is so many cool things that you can do with it, and a lot of cool legendary support that came out in the last couple of sets.
And more to come. So as they print more legendary creatures, this one is going to get out of control. So fantastic.
Okay, those are the 10 commanders that we wanted to talk about in this episode. I'm sure we'll do more of these. Just underrated commanders that we expected would be more popular. We want to make sure that, cool commanders get the love that they deserve.
Yes.
But you had this idea, so I want you to introduce it.
Yeah, so Rachel had come to me about this podcast. I'm like, absolutely, that sounds super fun. Yeah. And I was like, what if we also agree each to build one of these decks that we talk about, one of the 10 that we talked about today, put our cardboard where our mouth is, basically.
Yeah, tick up those numbers on EDH.
Exactly. At least one more, maybe more. So So we went through the list and we looked at them and decided which one we wanted to build. And honestly, now I'm having a hard time because going through the list, I'm like, oh no, they're all so cool.
They're all sweet. I know. I was sitting there. I was like, maybe I'm going to change my mind.
Yes.
Cadric's so cool. I just already have a Dihada deck, so I can't build it.
Oh man. Yeah. Honestly, so before I did the podcast, I wanted to do Queen Kayla Bin-Kroog because I like stacks, but at this point, Stangg was very cool. Your boyfriend has that one, so I want to kind of see it in action before. Yeah. But Lulu is also so
I know.
cool.
I was like, I'm gonna do Black-White Lulu. I don't have an Orzhov deck. It'll be like that'll be my first Orzhov deck, and it'll fill like a cool spot. And I still like that idea, but I was like, when we were talking about the blue-white vehicle Lulu, I was like, that's really sweet.
That's so cool.
And Blink Lulu's cool.
Yeah, Mahadi really speaks to me now, thinking about the cat devil thing going on there. Jhoira is also very cool. I'm having a hard time choosing. Are you sticking with the one you picked?
I think I'm gonna build a Lulu with Cultist of the Absolute, which is a background that we didn't talk about. It's a single black mana, and it turns a Lulu into a crazy beater, but requires you to sacrifice one creature to keep Lulu. It gives her like not a cumulative upkeep, but sort of. It doesn't scale.
Yeah.
And it mostly because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Lulu joins a cult. It was really fun. And it leaves it a little bit more open-ended for the cool cards I find to go in there.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm going to stick with that one, and I will be jealous of whatever you build.
Yeah. I'm going to go towards the one I was originally going to pick, which is Queen Kayla Bin-Kroog, because I actually realized I don't have any commanders that have a tap activated ability that I could think of, and I'm like, that seems so strange. I should have one of those.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do a Boros deck out of that and do probably some sort of Staxy build that someone will probably hate. Probably Jordan because he hates stacks, but he'll have to suffer through that.
It'll be fine. He'll figure it out.
Yeah. It's a fun puzzle.
It's a puzzle. Yeah. It's not stacks. It's a stack of puzzles. To the listeners, what commanders do you think are underplayed? Did we cover any of them today? Did we talk about any commanders that you have and we missed some of your favorite tech? I want to hear all about them. And why do you love the commanders that we talked about today? Because I think that's how you really sell somebody on a card is you're like, it can do this, it could do that, you could do any of these things. And so when people are passionate about commanders, it's really exciting, and that's how people fall in love with new commanders.
Yeah, so it's infectious. Share. And yeah, if you know interactions that we didn't cover here, because there's thousands of them that we didn't know, please share them in the comments. And if you have a deck already built for these or are thinking of one, share those as well, because that's how we get inspiration. Like we're giving you inspiration, we want inspiration back. Honestly, like
if you have a Lulu deck, if you have a Kayla deck, please
send them over.
I am always looking at deck lists and always excited to see yours.
Yes.
We talked about a lot of Magic cards today. We really, really did. If you want to pick up any of those, you can do so while supporting the show over at cardkingdom.com/command. Card Kingdom has a great selection of Magic singles and sealed product. Commander Masters is still going on. It is a great time to pick up sealed product for that. Any of the precons, they're super cool. Any of the singles in the set. It is a great time to shop for singles. Keep an eye on those big Commander staples and watch for the prices as they fall and rise. This is when you're going to be able to get your Cyclonic Rifts at their cheapest, your Deflecting Swats at your cheapest. These are the cards that really fill out a deck and really make it powerful, and you're not going to find it cheaper than in a couple weeks?
Yeah. After that, they start ticking up again, so...
Yeah, so pay close attention to Card Kingdom. Make sure that you are getting the cards that you want, and you're buying expensive cards. You want to make sure you're getting it from a place that is going to ship them safely to you and has the customer service to handle it if anything goes wrong. Again, support the show over at cardkingdom.com/command. You can also go to ultrapro.com/command and pick up some accessories. You're building one of these decks that we talked about. We know you are. Get a deck box and sleeves. Make sure that your collection is organized with the ULTRAPRO binders and safe. If you're using 3-ring binders, still reevaluate a little bit, because you can ding your cards, and making sure that you have safe binders that don't squish your cards is a real level up for your collection. I know I'm about out of binder space, so I'm going to have to get another one soon. Yep. And I'm going to do so over at ultrapro.com/command. Okay. We have had a long episode, but we have a very cool end step, so we're going to do an end step today. Gaurav, tell us all about what you've been doing outside the world of Magic.
All right. This is a bit far removed from Magic, but...
I don't know, it's magical.
It is very magical. Me and my wife are having a baby.
Yeah!
We're expecting in October, early October, and so I want to talk a little bit about that because it's a wild journey. So
baby journey.
I mean, it's hard to even think that it's real, but it is very real as my wife's belly grows larger and larger, and she talks about all of these things she's feeling, and we're buying baby furniture and going through all these things. So I'm going to become a new dad, which is scary and exciting and hopefully super rewarding because I'm very much looking forward to it as well. But
I think it'll be rewarding. I think it'll pay off.
I think so too.
I mean, word on the street is.
That's what I've heard. All the good dads say it's rewarding. All the bad dads say, I don't
know.
It was okay. Who we're talking about?
I don't know. He's a baby. He doesn't say much.
Here's a baby. But yeah, I'm very excited to announce that we're having a child. It is a boy born in October. I'll probably hopefully I'll put some photos up here of baby, what's that called? Sonogram? Is that what it's called? The thing when it's an X-ray?
The little picture.
Yeah, the picture.
Sonogram.
It's up here.
Right.
I'm sure that's what it is. I don't remember. I've been through so many doctor appointments at this point. Baby meetings. A baby meets. It's like, you want to me? You sure about that? But anyways, yes, I'm very excited.
That's so exciting. Very
nervous. And if you have any dad tips, put them in the comments. Honestly,
yeah.
I've been reading a lot, but I could always read more because one of those things I've heard is you'll never be prepared enough to have a child. Like, you'll be prepared. You can be as prepared as you want to be, but you'll never be prepared enough for it.
That's the thing about kids. They keep throwing you for a loop.
Yeah.
They come up with new weird ways to be weird.
Yeah, new ways to try and kill themselves, basically.
Yeah.
It's what babies are always trying to do. It's like, I fall off this? Oh, better catch me. I'm going to try, baby.
Well, many congratulations. In the comments from all of us, of course, we're very excited for you, and we can't wait to see some more babies around the office.
Yeah.
But make sure you say congratulations to Gaurav and send him, whatever book or expensive baby carriage that you guys used. They're so expensive.
Yes, I was literally putting a registry together yesterday. I was like, $700?
Yeah,
What
it's like a car.
Does it have an engine? Like, does it have air conditioning?
No,
it does not.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. It has rubber wheels.
It's just a bed with wheels.
It's nuts. It's nuts. Yeah.
A lot of exciting stuff coming up. We're very excited for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's get you home. We're going to say big thank you to our amazing team here at the Command Zone. Thank you to Damon Lentz, Eric Lem, Megan Yip, Jordan Pridgeon, Jamie Block, Arthur Meadowcroft, Manson Lung, Josh Murphy, Jake Boss, Sam Waldo, Evan Limburger, Lady Danger, Craig Blanchett, Katie Cole, Mitch Trafford, Gabriel Pozos, Josh Lee Kwai, Jimmy Wong, and of course to Gaurav Galati for taking the time to do this episode with us.
Yeah.
The bad boy of the Command Zone.
The bad dad soon. The good dad? Hopefully not bad dad. Don't say that.
Yeah. Bad boy, good dad.
There we go. That's the shirt I want.
Just this bad boy pointing to you, good boy pointing to him.
Yes, exactly. 100%. Great.
All right, let's see your t-shirt ideas in the comments as well. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @Josh Lee Kwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.